Live.
Great. Thank you, LTV. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the June 4th Town Board Work Session. Carol, if you could please read the roll call.
Councilmember Flight.
Present.
Councilmember Lees.
Present.
Councilmember Rogers.
Present.
Councilmember Caldapima.
Present.
Supervisor Burke Gonzalez.
Present. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we're going to start today's meeting with a public portion. We ask you that you kindly keep your remarks to 3 minutes. I know there are some folks that are here to speak about the Springs Park Committee update, so you have an opportunity. I'm going to call for public comment after that presentation, so if you would prefer to speak after the presentation, you could do that as well. The 5 topics we have on for today, we have bids, the Stephen Hans Path and Long Lane Roundabout, EAF, the Springs Park Committee update, the Bluff Road right-of-way, and the amendments to Chapter 167, litter and dump control. We'll then have liaison reports and then move on to a few resolutions. So we'll start with public comment, and the first one up is Lori Wilshire. Welcome, Lori.
Thank you. Thank you. Very briefly, we're here to request a work session. My client, Mike Ruddy, who's here with me, of Ruddy and Sons Masonry, has had applications pending with the planning board since 2019 and zone change petitions pending with the town board since January of 2021. In November of 2021, the planning board endorsed the zone change applications, which would provide privately constructed workforce housing for Mr. Ruddy's business. We are hoping this town board will act on this and hold a public hearing in the near future. The fees were paid for this application in 2021. If the town board approves the zone change petitions, changes the minimum lot size of the Affordable Housing Overlay District, and transfers density to Mr. Ruddy, then the planning board can complete their review of the pending applications, and Mr. Ruddy can build a manor house apartment building for his staff in the near future as well. And we're here to just request a work session so we can bring in the maps and go over all the details of the screening and everything else that the planning board has had us develop. And we're happy to share that with you. And Mike would like to say a few words as well.
And we'll find an agreeable date for that work session.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lori. Mike?
Hi.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, guys. Obviously, we do recognize the need that for affordable housing for people that work out here. Over the past few years, I have lost 4 or 5 employees, mainly due to not being able to afford to live out here. And a lot of them have moved up west. They have young families, and a lot of them have moved up west, and then then they want to come out because it's just too expensive to live here. So I'm willing to to try and build affordable housing, to try and recruit some people to come back out to work and help my business survive.
Thank you.
Very good.
Just going to move the podium a little bit this way.
Okay. Next up is Kyle and Alexandra Widrick. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you. My name is Kyle Widrick. I'm a homeowner among 6 other homeowners who share a road off a Bull Path called Crooked Highway. This is a topic that we've actually been working with the board on for more than a year now. Our shared road is owned by the East Hampton trustees, and we have serious safety issues on the road. The East Hampton trustees are not able to maintain the road. They don't have a budget to do so. It's been in disrepair for some time. We have approached the trustees via council, and we've made great progress to allow them to transfer the title of the road to the East Hampton town for upkeep. Since being granted this ability, we've been working to get the town to accept this arrangement. We just haven't made much progress. The homeowners are willing to foot the bill for the improvement to the road via taxes, and so this will be no cost to the town. Looking to make progress on this initiative. Ideally, decisive movement, to understand what, if anything, is in opposition to this movement. But we've done what we can. We've gotten the trustees to allow the transfer, and now we need the town to move, ideally to allow the acceptance of the road and maintenance of the road. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kyle. Next up, we have Carol Buda. Carol, do you want to speak now or after the presentation? Okay.
I assume it's one of you. First, let me say that I was stunned to see this plan that was published.
Could you
As the
speak into
first-
the microphone, Carol, so that they can hear you in the room and
Is that
on
better?
LTV?
That the first similar iteration was vehemently opposed by the vast majority of park users when it was proposed a year or two ago. The committee has completely ignored the concerns and wishes of the community, both those who use the park and those who want a small dog park. This plan misstates several things which I would like to point out to the board. First, the location of the small dog park. Current users want the park left as it is. I had suggested 2 locations the last time, both of which were ignored. The Springs Park is about 40 acres, and the current fenced area only uses half of that. A small dog park could be added adjacent and just on the other side of the fence on either side of the entrance. I walked the park about a year ago with Scott when we were trying to chase some deer out, and he told me he didn't really have a problem with that at the time, and it could be a solution that everyone would embrace. How come that hasn't happened, and why is that option not in the plan? Putting the small dog park in the middle of the park requires that those with small dogs or fear of larger dogs must enter the gate where large dogs congregate and then make their way amongst these dogs to get into their part of the park. Those asking for a small dog park want to be separated from the larger dogs and not have to walk among them. This plan makes absolutely no sense. The other location I had suggested at the time was the New Buckskull Park, which had a lovely cleared area in the middle, but the town chose to put Frisbee golf there. I wonder how many people ask for Frisbee golf or even know what it is. My wild guess there would be 0. This plan states that we need to expand the removal of invasive plants and trees to create more open grassland and say this will increase dog safety. I disagree. More open views will encourage dogs to run further to chase and meet other dogs, and people will not be able to keep up. One of my dogs often chooses to avoid strange dogs she doesn't know by rerouting through the bushes and woods and then joins me further up the path. Sun and heat in warm weather is a danger to both humans and dogs. The trees also create a windbreak on cold, windy winter days. On hot summer days and bitter cold winter days, I don't walk the last section of the park because there's no protection from the sun, heat, or wind. Telling us to wear sunscreen, as it is in the proposal, is really kind of like telling them to let them eat cake. Amazing habitats have developed in the wooded areas with birds, rabbits, turtles, opossum, etc. They will not survive in the field. Dogs will go and defecate in these meadows, and people will not traipse through the weeds and grasses to pick up. And if they did, they probably couldn't find the feces to pick up. The park will become more unsanitary. Just visit any cleared municipal dog park and you will find feces everywhere, and frankly, it's disgusting. One of the invasive species Scott told me he wanted to remove are the wild roses. All I can say is that the white and pink roses are beautiful. They lined the trails. People in the park really enjoy walking the trails bordering these plants, and they really don't want to see them removed. As for the understory, I've been in town meetings in the past and people complain that the deer have destroyed the understory as a rationale for getting rid of the deer. Now, in this plan, it says that it's an understory because the deer aren't eating it. So now we need to remove it. So it can't have it both ways. Understory is good, understory is bad. I think one of the reasons this park is so popular, such a broad variety of people, cross-section of the town, is it's a little wild. Everybody loves it. Right now it's kind of a compromise. I was involved with the initial group that fought for this park. And at the time, people may not remember back that long, but there used to be a lot of conflict up at Maidstone, the bay beaches, people with dogs, people jogging, people with little kids. The park got a lot of people with their dogs out of Maidstone and off some beaches and gave them a safe place to exercise their dogs. I don't think that parking has really ever been a problem there. And do we really need to be so unwelcoming and unfriendly as a town? I think that's something we really have to consider. And going forward, I would like to see the town either expand this committee or create a new, more representative committee. That last time this plan came out, I think we had a petition, about 50 people. People emailed, wrote the board, called in. I don't think any of us knew that the committee was even ongoing. Nobody was offered a chance to join it. And I just think it needs to be more representative of what the park users want and need. And I have been there when they brought the bulldozers in to clear some of these areas. And in the beginning, he said it was meadows. In the beginning, when the landscaper left, it was dirt where he hadn't planted yet, and there were a lot of concerns in the beginning because of all the chemicals that were put down for the nursery. So anyway, when they bring in the bulldozers, the turtles, the rabbit nesting, they also took out, along with the bad, they took out the good, they took out specimen trees. So I don't think I think it's fine if they want to go in and sort of selectively remove some of the Russian olive that's encroaching on some of the specimen plants, but to bring in bulldozers and add more meadows, we don't want that. We think it's a safety concern, and we just don't want that.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you.
Next up is Richard Feldman. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you. I just want to follow on with some of those comments. I've become a park regular over the past 3.5, 4 years, and I can say that it would be criminal to remove significant trees and flora from the park. It is relatively wild and pristine. It's inviting to the community of dog users, and I say community because it generates that sort of feeling among the people who walk there. There are some people who have larger dogs. We avoid them. If they go right to the right path, we go to the left on the way back. It's simple. And with the trees blocking the ways, the dogs don't interact. If you remove the trees, the dogs will interact. Right now, Seattle is going on a huge tree planting excursion because of global warming. We're now talking about removing the trees. I don't understand the philosophy here. This is a park that should be preserved in its current form. It should not be modified to take away the trees, the shade, which will affect the birds that are there. Their songs are intoxicating as you walk by. I walk there in the mornings. It's fantastic. I can't go there during lunch or in the mid-afternoon because it gets too hot toward the end of it. Without any trees at all, or without the safety of the shade or breaking the wind, it would become unusable most of the year. Why would you take what is a jewel of this town and turn it into a desert? It makes no sense.
Thank you. Jeff Ragman. Welcome, Jeff.
Good morning, board members. Jeff Bregman, I'm speaking for myself. About the roundabout proposed on Two Holes of Water and Long Lane. I noticed that the town board did not commissioned a plan for the roundabout, but you never commissioned a traffic study for the roundabout. And one of the things that bothers me the most about it is that it is a car first priority. You're changing this intersection into a design that gives priority and precedence to cars without any thought about the pedestrians and cyclists that use that intersection. Not to mention the cyclists who work and get back and forth on work on bicycles that travel on Stephen Hand's path, which is certainly a less welcoming road. You never examined accident statistics, which do not support any change to the configuration of the road. You twice rejected recommendations of the highway superintendent to just put 2 more stop signs there and turn it into a 4-way stop. You've made no accommodation for bikes and pedestrians, which cannot manage a roundabout. So what you're going to have to do is build further structure there by putting in a crosswalk with the attendant signs and potentially lights. And I might note that the template for your roundabout was taken from a design in Coram. And I don't really think that Coram should set the tone for what we do in East Hampton. And if you look at the image that your engineers gave you of that roundabout, you'll see the usual flock of signs that are required in order to manage a roundabout. I don't think you've adequately considered the facts on the ground. When I measured the distance from 114 to Cedar Street, it's less than a mile. It's about 0.8 mile. You can correct me if you run your car and get a different sign. Cedar Street ends in 2 stop signs. Common sense suggests that if you feed traffic more efficiently through a roundabout heading towards Cedar Street, you're not going to alleviate congestion on either side of the roundabout. And I might add, roundabouts can cause congestion. I was at the roundabout on Scuttle Hole Road over the Memorial Day weekend. And you know there's a roundabout there, which is an appropriate place for a roundabout because the distance runs from Sag Harbor to Southampton Village, a long distance. So it makes sense to put a roundabout there. There was congestion, there was bumper to bumper traffic in both directions that were the heavily trafficked directions of that day. So you're not going to cure the problem of the potential of creating traffic congestion from 114 to 2 Holes of Water Road with a roundabout. And indeed, the experience in America at large suggests just the opposite. In the 1960s, the United States noticed that its freeways were getting congested, and their solution was just what you're talking about. Let's make our freeways more efficient. We're going to put in a greater number of lanes, slow, fast, medium, exit. It's going to solve the problem. And they found out that it did the opposite. It increased congestion. Construction, you can't solve the problem by construction. I think the important point that I want to make today that you have not recognized adequately is that Long Lane in its entirety is a scenic area of local significance. The town of East Hampton has spent north of $118 million in conjunction with the county to save those lands. I know Ian Calder Piedmont knows that because his company works on one of the lands that we preserved. This is one of the most spectacular views in East Hampton. Your highway superintendent said you can fix the problem or attempt to fix it by putting in 2 more stop signs. The answer here is if it gets congested, motorists are going to understand that and they're going to find other ways around. You should not be in the business of expediting a cut through on a scenic lane that has some of the most spectacular views in East Hampton. It's the wrong move. You should take more time. You don't have the data to support it. The one fact-based issue, I will wrap it up. The one fact-based issue that you did look at is that cars coming from 114 that want to make a right-hand turn onto Long Lane do it with speed, and they wanted to stop that. They said the roundabout's going to stop that. Put a stop sign there. That will stop it. It's cheaper. It's not $1.5 million. I want to stick around to hear what's going on in the dog park, if I may. For a moment, I want to say one thing. That park is the most spectacular park in East Hampton, as is, there isn't anything natural in that park. It was a nursery. It is exquisite. I was there 2 days ago. I'm there all the time. When you walk through that park, you are walking through corridors of green. Nothing makes me happier. Nothing in the town of East Hampton makes me happier than being there. Love small dogs. My dog is a medium dog, very cute, I might add. Thank you, if she's watching. There's plenty of room right next to the dog park if you go left and create a little area. The owners of small dogs tend to like to sit around and let them romp and frisk. Do that, don't change the park. Thank you for your time.
Is there anyone else here that would like to address the board at this time? Tyler?
If the board would allow, I want to speak as a citizen for a moment.
Sure.
Okay. Tyler Borsak, I reside at Morris Park Lane. I'm a daily user of the dog park, so it's something that I go to, well, not every day, but almost every day. And the idea of, I think, removing and this is something I only looked at last night very briefly, the idea of removing invasive species at the dog park, I think is a great idea. When we first purchased the dog park back in the, I want to say early 2000s, mid 2000s, something like that, it was pretty clear. It had obviously landscaping plants there because that's what it was. It was a nursery prior to that. Since then, it's been overtaken completely by Russian olive or autumn olive, mugwort, black locust. It's a breeding ground for invasive species. There's no habitat value or very limited habitat value at the park. And I think this is one of those types of situations where the people that either would be for changes or that don't care just don't speak out about it. And people that don't want changes aren't, if you feel strongly about that and are here to let you know that. I didn't know this was on. So I just heard about it last night. I happened to be here, which is why I'm here speaking about it. But yeah, I don't have much to say about the other changes. My dog's not a small dog. I think the one thing I would point out is that keeping the small dog area in the park that's already cleared, essentially, is a much better option than clearing what's in fact intact woodland outside of the fenced area. The area outside of the fences is intact, high quality woodland. The area inside the park was all cleared for decades and has just been a breeding ground for invasive species. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. Jody, is there anyone on the line that would like to address the board?
Yes, there's several callers. Let me unmute them.
Thank you.
Caller ending with 2988, you're on the line. It's caller ending with 2988, you're on the line.
Hi, this is Maya Lynn. I live in the Springs. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Hello?
Hi, thank you for taking my call. I wasn't able to
Could you
make
just
it.
state your name for the
small
record,
dog.
please?
I'm fairly new. I've only lived in the Springs for about 6 years.
She's listening to the delay. Yeah.
Hold on one second.
I'm sorry?
I'm going to turn off the video because it's echoing.
Yes. Yes.
My name is Maya Lynn. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
We can hear you. Have you turned the video off? Jody, we're going to go on to the next
Okay,
caller.
we're going on to the next caller.
And if she calls in, could you just let her know she's got to turn off her video so there's
Sure.
no delay? Thank you.
Caller ending with 8764, you're on the line.
Good morning, Town Board. This is David Buda. I assume that you can hear me. If you will nod. There's a bit of an audio problem this morning, but I assume that you can hear me. Would somebody say something? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, David.
You. Hi. One of the speakers today spoke about problems that they're having with the improvements on Crooked Highway. The development and maintenance of town roadways is an important matter that the town board needs to address. There seems to be, believe it or not, a lot of confusion as to what roads are in or out of the town highway system. Obviously, in order for a road to be in the town highway system, it needs to be dedicated and accepted after the improvements are made by the developer. You have on your agenda today 2 resolutions that raise this interesting point. You have brought by Council Member Lease resolutions proposing to authorize emergency road repair on 2 different streets. One's called Winterberry Lane and one is Hawthorne Street. Hawthorne Street clearly is a road that is outside of the town highway system and therefore presumably you need to, as a town board, authorize the highway department to make those repairs. However, on the other hand, Winterberry Lane is a roadway that was created by way of a modern subdivision that was reviewed and approved by the planning board and should have required the developers to bond for and improve that roadway, to dedicate that roadway, and to have it accepted by the highway department. So if, in fact, Winterberry Lane is within the highway district, then there's no need for you to pass that resolution. If, on the other hand, Winterberry Lane somehow mistakenly was left out of the highway district, you need to address that question as to how that happened and to make sure that it doesn't happen again with respect to other roadways. Now, I do know of one subdivision out in Napeague where, due to the defaults of a developer, a development was built, multiple lots were built, and the roadway was never improved because of the financial default of the developer. And then to compound matters, the town's legal staff did not stay on top of the bond and never pursued its rights under the surety bond. Now, the whole question of whether or not a roadway is within the town highway district becomes important when your consulting engineer issues urban renewal map road assignments. Lately, I have at least three instances, where the consulting engineer has given private individuals who are developing individual lots road assignments that either entirely or partially are actually within the highway district, and therefore the highway department has the responsibility, financial responsibility, to maintain those roadways, and therefore it's inappropriate for those assignments to be given to individual property owners.
That's the time.
What I'm going to ultimately suggest, as my time is running out, is that the town take a close look at Town Law Section 270, which authorizes towns to create official maps so there'd be no misunderstanding or confusion as to what roads are in the highway district and which roads are not. Apparently, and I've checked this goes back, believe it or not, to 2018, when I consulted with the town clerk, the town of East Hampton has never utilized the official map authority to create an official map. Therefore, the only map that exists that shows people what roads are in the town highway district and which ones are not, I understand, is posted on the wall of the highway department, which is a very inconvenient place for people to know to go in order to determine whether the roadway is inside or outside of the town highway jurisdiction. All right, my time is up, and I'll leave my other comments for another time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jody, if you could put through the next caller, please.
We have caller ending with 8477. You're on the line.
Hi, my name is Michael Stork. I live in the Springs area. I've lived in the Springs area for a fair amount of time to stay with my family. I'm talking today in regards to the dog park. Like a lot of us, I think this was kind of brought to attention last night and this morning. So I don't know the exact clarification of the small dog legislation and the exact scope of work. I wanted to talk about it in regards to, the invasiveness and, I definitely think there are some opportunities with this plan of, maybe like the one gentleman said prior to me speaking of, clearing out some of the invasives like they are already doing right now. They chop them down 2 times a year. But the clear cut, at least I think that's the clear cut. The park is just absolutely crazy to me. Obviously in the town legislation, people can't just go onto properties and clear the whole thing. We need it for our water recharge. It's very good for the soil bases and stuff like that. So to just clear cut it, and it will really bring no value to the ecosystem. I walk there pretty much every day. There are thousands of birds. I saw kids, looking at birds and picking up turtles and taking them off the trail. there's such a nice ecosystem that's happening there. So I think it's very crucial that we start to put more emphasis on that. You know, as from the town, you know, there's new spec houses being put up every day. So to preserve the resources that we have should be very, very, should be a lot of value with that. And I think that it's one of the only parks that you have a year-round, you know, a steady year-round, you know, there's always people in that parking lot. I mean, in the winter, dead of winter, February, a cold Wednesday morning, there's always cars there. So obviously it's working, what's happening there. So I think that clear cutting makes no sense for the ecosystem, and it goes against what the town legislation is on a lot of sectors. I am a landscape architect. I think that, yes, there are some invasives, but there is a lot of pollinators and a lot of good stuff that comes out of that park. So the clear cut, I think, is just, it doesn't make any sense to me at all. So I would really ask the board to go and check out the park yourself. There's always people there. There's not just dog people, there's people that run those trails, and, you know, there's kids that run around, and it's just, it's one of the best parks in the Hamptons. And there's a Maidstone Park right down the street that has a playground and fields, and I really never see people there. So I think that what's there is great, and I would really beg the board to not change what's happening there. So, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Jody, is there anyone else on the line?
Yes, we have two more callers. Caller ending with 8307. You're on the air.
Can I say something real quick?
Sure.
I would just like to encourage anybody who's going to speak.
Rona Klopman from Amagansett. Can you hear me? Yes?
Yes.
Hopefully you can, because there is a delay. I'd like to say something about that roundabout, because I go to Sag Harbor very often. I go down Long Lane, and I make a left turn to go to 114. It would be a disaster to have a roundabout, which would cost the town, well, the highway department, $775,000, and then a possibility, approximately $1,550,000 for construction that the town board would have to give money from the taxpayers for that. When all you have to do is go down Sagaponack and see these lovely little speed bumps, which would cost nothing if you don't want stop signs. I mean, I go sometimes back way to Bridgehampton because of traffic, and really it slows down traffic, those speed bumps. I have no idea of why you wouldn't even try that before you get to Long Lane and Stevenhance Path. I mean, I never have a problem making a left turn. And I don't see the traffic, even in these times, as being such a problem. If I go to Riverhead and I get to those roundabouts, they're horrific. We don't want East Hampton to be like Riverhead. I mean, that's the whole point. So it seems to me either you try stop signs, you try speed bumps, but don't put a roundabout in that area. It would be totally destructive to our community to do something like making East Hampton into Riverhead as a thought. I mean, we have a roundabout off 114 when you continue it. That in itself is a disaster. I mean, it's going around curves that to get into East Hampton. When I'm coming out of Sag Harbor, I hate that roundabout, and I think you're looking for a real problem. Put another roundabout at Long Lane. So thank you, and I appreciate your re-looking into that strategy. I think it's a really poor one.
Thank you. Ian, you wanted to say a few words.
Yeah, I just want to, thank you, Supervisor. I just wanted to encourage everybody who's speaking about the park, if you have the time, to wait until the presentation occurs, because I think that the most productive conversation is going to be about that presentation and not maybe other information that isn't in fact in it. And further to that point, so everybody knows, nothing is going to be acted on today. There will be more opportunities to watch a replay, to send comments. So I would encourage everybody to wait so that we can have the more productive conversation.
Thank you, Ian. Jody, is there another caller on the line?
Yes, we have that same caller at 2988. Just remember to mute your television.
Hello, this is Mylin. I live in Springs. I'm just calling regarding my personal opinion about the dog park. I use that dog park at least 3 times a week by myself or with my partner, where he goes on his own with my 2 dogs. We have 2 small dogs. So I understand people's concern about having their small dogs there, but having the foliage there really protects the small dogs from seeing the large dogs. And then we cross over to different lanes if we see large dogs that we don't want them to interact with for safety reasons. And it is honestly like Disneyland for the dogs there. It's their favorite place in the entire world. Great exercise for humans, great exercise for dogs. Very few places in the Hamptons where you can actually have your dogs unleashed in a safe area. And there's a lot of shade. If you go there any day between 4 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., you'll see that there is a huge community of people who go there. And it really spreads across many different socioeconomic classes, which is really inviting, and great for the community. People who drive Range Rovers and people who, are landscapers. Like, everybody and their mother goes there. So it's a great community of dog owners. And it's very rare to find a place like this anywhere, actually, in the United States. I'm not opposed to the idea of, rehabilitating this area if it needs to be cleaned of some invasive species, but mowing it all down is not the right answer. Being selective would be a lot better. I mean, it might actually cost a little bit more, but, would be better for the community. And really, I think, it's unfortunate that the town board has not tried to engage the community of users more. I think most of us, you'll find from this call, really only found out about this meeting because somebody in our community of dog owners posted a sign last night to tell us about it. Others, none of us knew about it. And so, I really do believe, when the person spoke in person, that there needs to be community engagement on this of people who actually use the space is really important, and come to a solution. I'm not opposed to having a small area for small dogs that's fenced, and I'm sure there's many ways to do that without leveling the whole place. And it's an absolutely beautiful place and very, very well shaded, which is really important in the summer because there's so many users during the hot weather. Again, this is Maya Lynn. I live at 1077 Springs Fireplace. We need that for the record. And I'm happy to join any committee, and to help engage in community engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Maya.
That's all the callers.
Great. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to address the board, or if you prefer to wait until after the presentation? Okay. Kevin Cobb. Welcome, Kevin.
Hi. Kevin Cobb, Project Inspector for East Hampton Highway Department. I think Mr. Lynch, the superintendent's suggestion of adding 2 stop signs was an alternative, but at this point, we support the roundabout as a safer and less congested option.
Thank you. Kevin, you could also just wait with us when Tyler goes over the EAF. It'd be great, too.
Pardon me?
If you could just wait a little longer, we'll also have you up for maybe other questions after Tyler goes through the EAF.
Sure.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin. Okay, so we're going to move on to topics. We've got Jeannie Carrozza with bids. Welcome, Jeannie.
Good morning. Good morning. Few bids here, rejection, and some notices. The first bid I have the resolution on today to accept is for the Stephen Hanspath Recreational Facility Mobile Food Concession Hampton Soft Ice Cream also has another entity, Finger Licking Food Truck, which will be full-service food truck there. For season one, the amount proposed would be $1,160, and season two, $1,260. Next is to accept a bid of printing of envelopes and business cards. Check-O-Matic, Ridgewood Press, Concept Print, and Montauk Printing are the low bidders for that. The next is another printing bid, and that's just the printing of miscellaneous forms, Montauk Printing and Ridgewood Press for that bid. We have an extension of the Fort Hill Cemetery interments and maintenance contract. Peter Joyce Seaside Landscaping Pools has agreed to extend that contract. We also have a rejection, and that is the supply and delivery of jet skis. That will probably revise somewhat, and we'll go out for bid for that as well soon. A notice on for today is for the Ditch Plains Beach Nourishment, and that bid will be available on Thursday. Other notices, supply and delivery of food items for human services, Old Stone Highway culvert replacement and invasive species removal. Invasive species removal. Surplus oyster seeds with aquaculture. And also we're working with Sag Harbor School District once again for HVAC repair, service, and installation. And finally, we did an RFP for the engineering services for coastal dune restoration at Ditch Plains Beach. And Kim Shaw from the Natural Resources Department and the evaluation team is here to make that recommendation. And that's it.
Thanks, Jeannie.
You're welcome.
Welcome, Kim.
So the RFP was issued in March of 2024 to retain a team to design a beach and dune at Ditch Plains Beach that incorporates FEMA, Emergency Management Agency, guidance for potential federal reimbursement. The design that we asked for will incorporate FEMA guidance for an engineered sand-only beach. As we all know, Ditch Plains experienced severe erosion.
Kim, could you just pull the microphone in a little closer? I'm sorry, the fan makes it hard to.
Okay, sorry. Ditch Plains experienced so much erosion in the winter of last year into 2024. We had flooding in the neighborhoods, and so what we're looking for is a beach nourishment that can be an effective and an important solution for Montauk. In response to the RFP, the town received 3 proposals that the selection committee reviewed. They considered various factors, including but not limited to the professional credentials, experience, and the assessment of the team's submission and the interview process. We shortlisted 2 teams that we interviewed, and the winning proposer was Coastal Science and Engineering, based out of Columbia, South Carolina. Dr. Kana is the founder of CSE and has over 40 years of experience and is internationally recognized expert in beach erosion and beach nourishment design. He oversaw the Bridgehampton Sagaponic nourishment in 2013, and his team is going back for another evaluation in 2024. So that beach was about 30 miles long, but it sustained over 10 years at 80% of the total fill that they brought in. This RFP was not to exceed $22,790.
Great. So that'll be on for Thursday, correct?
Okay, great.
Thank you. Okay, so next up, we have Tyler Borzak making a presentation on the Stephen Hans Path and Long Lane Roundabout EAF.
Borzak for the Planning Department.
1 second, Tyler, if I could just tee this up for you.
Sure.
This is a public safety initiative by the town board, working together with the Highway Department. We also have Tyler Borzak. We also have Kevin Cobb, who is our highway project supervisor here also. We heard comments before. We have more comments needed. This is presented in multiple town board work sessions. We've heard from multiple supporters of this project in the location, and also others that have other comments in a different opinion. Tyler's going to go through the EAF aspects of the project as the project continues to try to move forward.
Sure. So the EAF includes a part 1, part 2, and part 3. I'm not sure if you need me to go through part 1. Part 1 is really just a number of questions of, is it in this zone, is it not in this zone, and sort of an overview of what the project is. So essentially what that does is that then influences what questions you may or may not answer on part 2 and then part 3. The key points, I think, for the discussion are that it's in Suffolk County's special groundwater protection area. It's potentially in an area where there might be northern long-eared bats. There's obviously a history of flooding in this area to be concerned about, and it's also in the hardscrabble scenic area of local significance, which is a component of the scenic area statewide significance. We answered no or small impact on all the questions on the part 2, but then specifically went into to discuss why we answered no to those questions specifically within the part 3, which is where you would discuss if you said yes or why you said no. As far as groundwater and drainage and flooding concerns were discussed, again, it's in this special groundwater protection area, so we felt that we needed to discuss it again and also with the history of flooding in the area. The project appears to have been designed intelligently to deal with any flooding concerns in the area and connect it to the work that has just been completed on Stephen Hand's path already. So this will have catchment basins and a drainage swale in the northeast corner to collect any runoff coming from the farmland. And then that'll all be connected to the existing system that was just installed and was designed to handle the runoff from this area, which will then go down towards 114 where there's that large catchment basin. So we felt that there shouldn't be any issues with groundwater and the drainage concerns were addressed adequately. Another concern potentially was northern long-eared bat, which is an endangered species and it's protected. We didn't feel that there was any impacts. There's no significant clearing. I think there's maybe one tree that'll get cut down, and that should be outside the window that it would be protected in anyways. But there shouldn't be any impacts with northern long-eared bat, given that it's a continuation of the existing use, which is a roadway. And the amount of clearing is very minimal for what's required. And then as far as being within a scenic area of local significance, the hardscrabble scenic area was established to protect essentially the farmland views, the rural character of that area. This is on the far edge of that SALS, and really it's below grade from what you would expect to be protecting, which is those views. We didn't feel that it had any impact on those protected features. And so again, we answered no or minimal impact on that as well. And we also looked at alternatives, one of which would have been a traffic light or stop signs. A traffic light certainly would have had visual impacts. And stop signs, I think, is a less efficient way to deal with the problem without generating more traffic. You'd be generating more traffic essentially with stop signs than with a traffic circle. It's a far more efficient way to deal with an issue like this if you do need to deal with an issue like this. And there's probably other four-way intersections or stoplights in town that could be roundabouts rather than stop signs. So that's about it. I mean, we didn't find any significant impacts. We tried to address all the concerns that may have come up. We felt the drainage was handled well. We didn't feel that it impacted any of the concerns with the SALS, and that it was consistent with the SALS, and that there shouldn't be any impacts on endangered species.
Thank you. Kevin Cobb, can I ask you to come up just to, one more time, give the comments from the town's highway department? Thank you, Kevin. Yes, please, yes.
They were suggested
and
about...
Just, Kevin Cobb.
Kevin Cobb, East Hampton Highway Department, Project Inspector. It was suggested that 2 stop signs would be an alternative. That's something you could do. But we believe that a roundabout is a much safer and less congestive option.
Thank you.
It's been proven. There have been studies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
Does the board have any questions for Tyler or?
I do not.
No, I have no questions for Tyler. I just again to note that in terms of studies and assessments, there's a roundabout down at the end of Route 114 at the 5-corner intersection that's been there for quite some time. That used to be a multi-way stop, and I think if anyone normally travels on a when there's a 4-way or a 5-way stop, you know, there's a lot of chances where two people are trying to go at the same time, et cetera. And I think that particularly in that area would be something that you would want to avoid. I think it would be good to look at the success of the 5-corner roundabout just down the road in the village.
Also, the design of this, the pavement in this design actually is nearly double the size of the pavement that's already on the travel lanes between the middle line and the fog line that is on Stephen Hand's path currently, post the intersection work that we've done. This is done on purpose to give a greater area of safety for pedestrians and also for traffic, for bicyclists in this location, as this also came up as a connection area between 114, Stephen Hand's path, and Long Lane. So the design actually gives added pavement and width of pavement between the fog line to give areas of greater public safety for pedestrians and also for bicyclists in this area.
Tyler, I do have one question, sorry. I mean, I understand from some of the comments today that there's concerns with the concept of roundabouts being a form of gentrification in a rural community. You know, a lot of that goes down to how they aesthetically look. I mean, I come from somewhere originally where roundabouts are everywhere, both rural and urban areas. Do we have any concept of what the design might actually look like at this point, or is this still kind of very early
There's some
stages?
concept drawings that, or at least overheads of what the circle will look like, or the roundabout will look like. I don't know if we have them available. I could pull them up if we did.
Correct. These conceptual drawings are going to actually mimic cobblestone and grasses is what it's going to be. And that's going to be what's called the truck apron, which allows trucks to go over the apron during their turning radiuses, which we looked at trucks, farm vehicles, or others, or buses specifically, and fire engines, which have all been discussed with one of the chiefs of the fire department. Unfortunately, it's Scuttle Hill Road, which is also an area of great agricultural use then too. That design actually has a telephone pole right in the middle of it. Yeah. So unfortunately, it was not necessarily designed correctly, but it actually is implemented very well in a very small area. But this apron will be cobblestone, and try to make sure that it's not going to be concrete pavers. It's going to be cobblestone, so something within the character of the community, what it deserves.
Yeah, and mountable curbs so that if there's any big trucks go through, they don't have an issue getting around it as well.
Yeah, and another important aspect also is of that apron is obviously for fire trucks and ambulances to be able to access it.
And then the other point that was raised was about the safety at this junction. I know one caller kind of mentioned they easily make a left there. I know it to be challenging myself when I'm picking up kids from school. And I also know there's been accidents in that area, just from EMS calls I've been on. Do we have any data with regards to accidents?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
There's data. We could pull it for you, Tom, and get it.
That'd be great.
I didn't have access to that.
Yeah, the engineers had it when they designed it.
Yeah, I just want to say, I think, thanks to Mr. Lees for pausing on this and pulling it to bring it back to the table. We had some comments at a previous meeting. I'm supportive of the concept. After the comments previously, I called Steve Lynch, the superintendent of highways, who is supportive, as Mr. Cobb said, of this design. I was concerned about that. I was also concerned about access for tractor trailers and large equipment, because Long Lane is sort of the agricultural corridor of East Hampton, and a lot of the nurseries there have large equipment in and out. And he's confident that with the design, as Dave said, with the cobblestone and grass, that it will accommodate equipment like that. In terms of safety issues here, I use this intersection all the time, and anybody who does has to notice that there's a danger. So happy that we've discussed all the options, stop sign, stop light, but a traffic circle does make sense. And that being said, I'm happy that we gave this another minute to hear more from the public. And some of the other comments I think are important are the pedestrian cyclist safety. In the final design, I think it'll be very important that we consider that, which I know everybody is. But that's why we have these discussions.
Great, thank you. Tyler, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler.
Appreciate it. And if you want to stay, Tyler, for the Springs Park
Committee, okay, all right. You can catch it on YouTube. Thank you. Okay, so next up, we have the Springs Park Committee update. It's going to be presented by Neil Kraft and Scott Wilson, but I know, Ian, you wanted to make a few comments first.
Yeah, just really briefly, you know, I'm obviously new on this board, or newish. I'm the new liaison to the Springs Park Committee. I asked for this presentation. I mean, look, I know this has been controversial in the past, but our job as a government, as a small town, is to talk about issues and figure out what we want to do. And so the idea of not discussing it, and frankly, I was warned or even threatened not to have this conversation, but that's not the way that things should work. It's not the loudest voices necessarily that are going to scare us or intimidate people into doing something, but it's a reasonable and productive conversation that we need to have. Nothing is set in stone here. There was some mention of community involvement, community engagement. This is a starting point for that. Nothing will be voted on this week, next week. None of the board members are necessarily in agreement with the committee, but the town has a sanctioned committee who's done work on this, and it's appropriate for us to talk about that publicly. We want to hear from all people. We want to hear from the other side. I just want to keep those comments focused on what is actually being presented, because there's a lot of misinformation out there, and as you'll hear, I don't want to supersede the conversation here, but there is no clear-cutting proposed. It's an invasive species removal. But again, there'll be more opportunity to reach out to me in my office with any comments after this. I hope for a productive and civil conversation. In terms of community engagement, again, I know Neil Kraft, the chairman, reached out on social media previously. We welcome, I think, other members with different viewpoints. Everybody involved, the committee, the people who are, skeptical of the proposal, love the park. I'm a Springs resident. I love the park. We all love this place. We owe it to ourselves and the community to have a civil, respectful conversation that will lead to something, to a more beautiful place, or realize that we don't want to make particular changes. So with that said, I hope that we set the tone, and again, welcome all comments, all sides, and I commit to you to leave this open, so to speak, for several weeks if anything comes to mind after the presentation.
All right, Neil, you're up.
Okay, I'm up. I just, so in the first slide, we have the title, and then we have the list of participants, and as Ian said, just to be clear, we have many times asked for additional participants and asked the general public to join us, and generally speaking, people have not.
And we should just say the committee meets quarterly, correct?
Yes.
So the commitment is an hour, 4 times a year.
Right. There's no, that I know of, town email system where I could have asked people. So I did it on public, and on public media, so to speak. And the people that are on this list are the people who responded. We all want a beautiful, beautiful park. Every single person on this list goes to the park at least 3 or 4 times a week. And every single person on this list does not remotely want clear cutting or anything that would ruin the park. So let's just be clear about that. We're living in an age of misinformation, and hopefully this, presentation will clarify that in some way. Okay. So next slide. In nearly 3 years since our last discussion, significant progress has been achieved thanks to the help of the board and land acquisition. The approval of a secondary gate and new signage has contributed to a marked decrease in incidents within Springs Park. The installation of the secondary gate in particular has led to a significant resulting reduction in deer incursions and dog conflicts at the entrances. Also, the addition of more garbage cans and mutt mitts has noticeably curbed littering issues, not completely, but it's helped. We are grateful for these items, and we are also grateful for the work that Land Acquisition and Parks has done maintaining the park. With the objective of ensuring that Springs Park is the safest and most enjoyable experience for dog owners, their pets, and all other park users, we present the following recommendations to the town board. And again, these are only recommendations. We are looking for comments. Many of these recommendations were initially outlined in our original presentation, but remain important. Some are also included in the adopted Springs Park Management Plan. For those people who don't know, there is an existing management plan for the Springs Park, which many of these items are in, and that has been approved by the town board many years, 15 years ago, and it's still valid and active. So some of the stuff we're asking for is just in that management plan. We've listened to the public comments from last time, both about clearing and those and the protected dog area. We thought carefully about these comments and still feel that the following recommendations are needed for the park visitors and to help the town in its never-ending fight against invasive species. While we acknowledge that the ultimate responsibility lies with pet owners to properly train and manage their dogs, we recognize that whereas anywhere off-leash dogs congregate, the potential for conflict exists. This is just a brief overview of something we accomplished since last time. There's the old sign and there's the new sign. We think it's much clearer. We think it's vastly improved, for which we extend our gratitude to the board. However, one crucial rule, see and control your dog, remains challenging due to lack of visibility in the wooded areas of the park. Now, this is where there may be some misunderstanding because we are not asking for open grasslands everywhere or clear cutting. What we're talking about, as Tyler said, is to expand the removal of the invasive shrubs and trees, not the trees that are there. There are plenty of trees there. I walked it this morning that are mature oaks and things that will continue to give us shade. We want to create more open areas. This action will not only improve visibility for dog owners to supervise their pet, but will also enhance habitat diversity. Again, I heard a lot about us hurting birds and turtles. That is not remotely our intention. We are working with land acquisition and which has naturalists on their staff. There is nothing we will do that will harm any endangered species. By getting rid of the invasive species, you actually encourage habitat diversity because those plants, like the autumn olive, which is an incredible plant, don't encourage diversity. There will still be birds tweeting in the park, I promise. There's a great deal of shade, primarily provided by mature oak trees, which are native. The need to keep shaded areas is minimal, in our opinion. As with town beaches, patrons are typically advised to bring hats and sunscreen during the potential hot weather. There won't be that many times you need that. I just wanted to point out that, we're not in the shade removal business. We're in the invasive species removal business, and also to clean up the park. As Tyler said, that those areas that are now completely overgrown are impenetrable. So what we want to do is remove the autumn olives and the black locust. That is not clear cutting. That is just those two plants and maybe a few others. We do not want it clear cut. Okay, these are some pictures from Scott, but it's important to look at. This is, although invasive species may have been present in 2001 and 2004 along the edge in some of these tree areas, a marked difference between then and now is substantial. If you visit the park regularly over time, it would be difficult to note the growth, but the aerials tell a story. When we took possession of the property, it was mostly meadow or dirt. This is 2004, and here is a recent picture, and you can see how overgrown that's become. Again, we don't want meadows and clearing, but we do want to get rid of the plants that are choking off the native plants, and that's the reason to get rid of the plants that are choking off the native plants. If you look at these pictures, they demonstrate the sharp contrast between a typical Hampton's woodland area, shown here and here, and Townless Park. This is an overgrown section within the park where visibility is extremely limited. The reason for this is partially that there are no deer to eat the understory, and also that the park contains seeds from its years as a nursery. That does not, in my opinion, mean that we should just give up and let nature destroy itself here, because it's not really natural. So this is what one of the meadows looks like. It's not our intention to have the whole park look like that, but we thought you'd see that at least there's some air in those areas. And those are mowed once a year at the time when it is most likely that there will be no nesting birds or turtles that. And in fact, some of the cleared areas in the park that are mowed over the winter. Okay, so again, there's some misinformation about this. And also to be clear, we have heard this from people. We did not invent this idea, but there are many, many people who would like a protected area for smaller dogs, for people who are afraid of getting knocked over. I was kneecapped a couple of weeks ago by a dog. You know, I'm somewhat capable, but I did hurt my ankle. So I understand, you know, that people want a small dog area. If you look at the options, I don't know where this came from earlier, but both examples, A and B, are right off the fence. We clearly do not want people walking into the park with a dog that they're afraid to bring into the park. So that's the reason for the placement here. Both the options are within either 20 feet or 60 feet away to protect against additional noise. These areas are a tiny part of the 22 acres. Here's a larger overview of the safe spaces. Again, a minuscule part of the park. That being said, we just would like the town to have an area that is more protected for people who are afraid. It can go anywhere. We do not want it outside the park, where, as Tyler said, there are mature oaks. But there are places both in the park and within many of the other parks that would serve as a small dog area. I've asked several times online for people to, you know, who want the small dog area to get it together and propose to the town, you know, what they'd like to do, because it's not even for me, it's for you guys. And we haven't heard much. So that's a disappointment.
I've got 12 emails so far and
12?
counting. In
About the
support
small
of
dog
a
area?
small dog area, yes.
Ah, well, that's a lot. Just one other, another suggestion. We really appreciate what animal control does for the town, and they have visited the park on several occasions when somehow lost dogs got into the park. While we understand the staffing constraints exist, we would like to arrange occasional and unannounced visits to address park-related matters. More importantly, these visits serve as a reminder of the posted rules. We do not expect animal control to walk around giving tickets to people for not managing the dog. But it's kind of the same principle as the policeman behind every corner in East Hampton. When people know it's there, they stop speeding. And so if people see animal control there once in a while, I asked a woman the other day who was sitting on the front bench and let her dog go to the back bench, and the dog was kind of wild, not horrible, but wild. And I said, you know, it'd really be good if you walked with your dog. She just shrugged her shoulders and looked at me like I was some kind of crazy person. It's kind of a strange thing, but they don't feel that they need to be responsible for rules. And so we think people will behave better if someone occasionally walks around with a uniform. Okay, so this was also mentioned earlier, but try to explain it. There is a couple of reasons why we want a resident-only parking permit system. The first is that it's in the existing management plan, is meant to be a town park, not a general use park. The problem currently is, and I've spoken with Heather about this, is that people get kicked out of the Southampton Dog Park. I have absolutely no idea how you get yourself kicked out of the Southampton dog park, because we certainly can't do it. And they come right to our park and continue the same sort of bad behavior. These are typical pictures from the mornings or afternoons off season, and they show how well used the park is, and that many of the problems come from the fact that people, I mentioned that. Okay. This is, again, off season. This is what happens in season. We're not worried about the parking problem. That's my dog in the corner. But we do think that the more we can control outside interests, the better. Same reason why we have permits at the beaches. You know, it's not just to control people, it's also to keep it manageable. And we just like the park to be manageable. We firmly believe that the adoption of these recommendations, coupled with ongoing education and outreach efforts directed at park users, will yield widespread benefits for the East Hampton community. We extend our gratitude to the board for the continued attention to these matters. We, of course, welcome feedback from the larger community, as Ian said many times. And we'd like to thank Ian, Scott, and Andrew for their invaluable support. Again, got through the whole presentation without the word clear cutting in it because it's not there. I asked Scott to just, if the board doesn't mind, to give us 5 minutes on the invasive species in the plant,
Sure.
in the park.
Yeah. Thank you, Town Board, for allowing us to continue this dialogue. And thanks for mentioning that our management plan that we adopted in 2009 is still relevant, because I still think it is. And I just want to touch base with regard to, removal of invasives, autumn olive in particular. One of the recommendations, which is the meat of any management plan, was the removal of autumn olives. This is a highly invasive species. It's become a major problem for the park. Loss of scenic views, along with habitat for bluebirds and other ground nesting birds, is imminent. Biologists consider invasive species such as these to be one of the greatest threats to native plants and animals, second only to the outright loss of habitat to urban sprawl, agriculture, and industrial development. Considering what the park looked like in 2001, which was clear-cut, highly manipulated and managed land, and what it looks like now. The cleared areas on this aerial that you see here, we manage annually. We do go in there with a bobcat because it's the dog park area is about 23 acres in size. You note if you walked into this building and sat in these seats, how beautiful that garden is. Just yesterday, there were at least 5 people managing that very small area. And our department manages almost 6,000 acres at this point. And so my 2 land stewards and I are often the folks riding in the bobcat trying to help maintain these areas. We also help create these areas by pulling individual autumn olives by hand. We thought we could handle it. We were woefully inadequate in our 3-person ability and a couple of volunteers to get as far as we wanted to. And so we have what we have. I can tell you if those who want us to do nothing or are advocating that we not touch that park, if we do not, you won't even have those trails that exist there. We regularly go and mow and clip because those autumn olives that will spread to canopies of over 20 feet wide and 30 feet tall will choke out every trail in this park, and the difficulty there for using it thereafter, unless the town is going to allow them to, as they suggested when 100 people came in when we adopted this management plan, they would take care of it themselves. You'd have to use power tools in order to do that. So without some direct intervention to manage this area, it would all go to autumn olive, and there you have it. With regard to the small dog area or protected area, again, this is just a dialogue. I mean, we showed 2 areas where the likely 0.4, 0.3, 0.25 is not a set specific size. That's something we can continue with a dialogue with the town board and the public. With regard to where it goes, definitely making a recommendation to keep it within the deer fenced area, which is again almost 23 acres in size, as opposed to putting it outside of the fenced area, which is already a mostly pristine woodland habitat to actually clear additional species outside of a 23-acre formerly cleared area just didn't make sense to us. Again, that's a recommendation, and that's part of the dialogue. If in fact the town board and the public feel it should go at another location, well, we're here to implement the desires of the board and the public. So are there any questions for Neil or myself?
It was a great presentation. I thank you for adding that. And we all know, the scourge of Russian olive and what it's done across East Hampton. It's been devastating, and not sure it's one under bamboo. It gets in and it just takes over everything else, and everything else is pushed out. Also, in all the locations, they have an attractive seed, and the birds love to eat them and carry them and then drop them everywhere else. So that I know that this is an issue. And certainly when I was on the ZBA NAB applications, the clearing out of the invasive Russian olive would be part of the conditions on the applications.
If you drive down the LIE,
it's killed.
You can see it's all Russian olives.
It's taken over all of Long Island.
It's taken over all of Long Island.
It's our kudzu.
But
it's what?
Can you have a seat, please? We'll just finish the conversation before we get to the public.
No, he's presenter. We're asking questions now, and then the public will come up. Thank you. But if it would be helpful for me and for everyone to please list the just straight summary of the recommendations that you are presenting to us today. So we have a proposal for a small or a safe animal area for smaller animals or disabled animals. I just want to make sure I have everything. And what are the other recommendations?
So clearing invasive species, not clear cutting, a small animal area of some kind, again, not necessarily in the park, but not in a beautiful woodland area that's untouched. We would like occasional visits by animal control, simply as a kind of prophylactic, just to make people sort of aware that there is a town ordinance. If you go, again, to use the beach example, there's always people, kind of walking around there. They show up, they do the marine patrol, whatever. It's important. People think that if there are people around, and they just tend to behave better. It's unfortunately human nature.
And there was a parking recommendation?
Yes. So the fourth or third is that we continue to abide by the management plan, the adopted management plan, which states that it's should be a town parking only area.
Yeah, so if you look at the management plan, under park rules, it says parking by permit only. A resident or non-resident parking permit will be necessary to park at the site.
Yeah, that was my next question. How many of these recommendations, Scott, are already in the management plan?
Well, the smaller protected area isn't in the management plan. Everything else is in the plan.
So three out of the four are already in the adopted management plan?
Yes.
And yeah, I guess it's the law, but we can't get them done.
But they are in the plan as a guide or a recommendation. They're not mandates.
Right.
So the management plan is from 2009. The park was purchased in 2004 for open space recreational purposes using CPF.
We took possession in 2002.
2002. Initially, there was actually another incarnation of the Springs Park Committee. I believe a lady named Karen Vilche was on that. She was the former owner of the Old Stone Market, in which they actually looked to have this very highly designed with sitting areas, terraces, where it would be more inclusive, not just to one recreational user group, but to more recreational user groups. The way that it's morphed then over the last 2 decades since has been more geared towards one recreational user group. That's why also I believe that implementation of this at the Buckskill Meadows is completely incorrect on there, because there's already a location for this user group to use this park and not go into conflict where other areas might be for walking paths, such as with people with their children with autism that maybe not want to see dogs come off a leash. I do agree that you need to have more regular monitoring of all our parks, and we've done that at Buckskill Meadows, and this location, it's the same. I don't see why the town should continue to allow for invasive species to run rampant. I remember going here when it was a nursery, picking up trees And when they were trying to sell it all at 50% off or even less, that time to get rid of it. And it wasn't the most maintained place at that time, but that seed bank in there wants to come back, but that seed bank won't be allowed to come back if invasive species take over in that which way. What I think has happened here is very organic over the last 2 decades right now. What I would hate to see is something that becomes more conflicted on there, and the organic use of the park becomes a constant place of conflict, either between the users or the potential future users of this parkland, getting to the town board, where the town board would have to take a more aggressive stance on the management plan and the uses there, because it was for all the township residents and also to be used for open recreation, which has many different forms of recreation on there then too. So find happy mediums. I think you've done a very good job at trying to steer this. Ian has done a great job trying to collaborate and bring in more voices to this discussion of this park and how it's organically gone. I like some of the recommendations. I look forward to a greater discussion, but I think we should all remember where this park started and the efforts of a long time ago that fizzled out at that time because of conflict. I want to appreciate and I thank you, Neil, for your efforts in leading this discussion forward.
I would just want to answer your question. It is, as far as I know, and Scott has supported me on this, the most used park in the town area. And that's partially because it's a place where you can bring dogs. And, if you take it to Bucksville, for example, and you're right, it's the wrong place for it, there's nowhere to stop them from running off. So you can't control them.
Yeah, I think it might be the most used passive use park, not active recreation park. We have other active recreation parks that are much more used than this.
Yeah.
Thank you, and that's my comments.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, I would just go back to my colleague's earliest comments. I mean, I think after children, pets, specifically dogs, are a highly emotional topic. And, this space is obviously very valuable to people, both as a recreational, but also as something more to them. It's something they take their loved creatures. With that said, this discourse must maintain an area of credibility and not dissolve into attacks and disinformation. I think open communication, continued communication is critical here for the right outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, I just want to say, what Tom said, and this is supposed to be a conversation. And in terms of community engagement, I've fielded probably 15 or 20 calls today and yesterday. I know some people just found out that this meeting was occurring. I advertised it through the Spring CAC, through every channel I knew of people who might be interested. I know Mr. Buda, who's a frequent town board speaker, sent it out to his list. Nobody is trying to hide this. But knowing that not everybody is intricately involved or intimately involved in government, that they might not be aware, we're committed to not voting on a resolution today. So if the first anybody hears of this is perhaps somebody writes an article about it, and then they realize this discussion happened, it's not the end of the story. We still want their opinion. We want people to watch the replay, to look at the presentation, to reference the management plan, and we want to take all ideas. There's no reason why we can't have a civil, productive conversation about this wherever we end up landing. So now to get to the specific points, as far as the small dog area, and I've heard from a lot of people. Now, there's some people vehemently opposed to it, and I've heard from as many who favor it. Sometimes people aren't comfortable in an environment where it, can feel a little bit hostile or combative, and so they don't speak publicly. But believe me, and I'm not making this up, I've heard from both parties. I think when we look at the map here, it's one of the largest. It's not a dog park officially, by the way. It's a park for all people. We know that's one of the top uses, and everybody loves that. But it's one of the largest parks used for dogs, I think, in the country. And so the idea of setting aside a couple of percent for people who might not feel comfortable in the general population of larger dogs seems like a very reasonable request. And to be clear, I fielded one call concerned about they can't take their small dog into the bigger park. You can. The idea is to have a sanctuary for older, sick, not sick because you don't want to take your sick dog there, but injured dogs or small dogs who can feel safe in a separate area but still be socialized. That seems like a very reasonable idea. My mind is not made up on that. I want to hear, anybody who thinks that that's a terrible idea. I will say, and frankly, I had a conversation with Scott Wilson about this, about having the small dog park outside. And after looking into that at all, it doesn't make sense. This is not mostly native habitat inside. Outside is. CPF, the town, we're in the business of preserving, our natural habitat. It wouldn't make sense to put it outside, do more clearing of the things we want to protect because we're afraid to take a couple of % inside. And, I've heard a lot of people concerned about the trail around the whole park. That will be maintained. We will design it so that you can still walk around the whole park. You might have to walk 100 feet before you cut over to the fence and then continue the loop. But I think that that's a proposal we should really strongly consider. Still want to hear from more people, but I've heard from a lot of people who want that. The invasive species removal, this is a big one. It's a lot of concern. A lot of people I spoke to were concerned about clear cutting and habitat. Invasive species are not known as good habitat for local species. So there are certainly environmental reasons to do that. I've also heard from people really concerned about the shade. That is a valid concern, that you want your dogs and yourself to be comfortable while you use the park. Totally understand. So I would suggest that the next step is to look at what the result would be should we remove some of these invasive species. Would there be shade lost? Probably. I think that we can determine more accurately how much there would be, or perhaps we can manage a small section of it to see what it looks like before we proceed. I don't know. This is the start of the conversation. I will say that not doing anything is not sustainable. If you let invasive species invade, they take over eventually. And if you look at the photos of what this park used to be to what it is today, you can see how much they're taking over. So, we're not selfish people. We're looking out for the best interest of the town, for today, for ourselves, and for the next generation, or for users. So perhaps we look at planting native species that might provide shade for the future. Again, this is the start of a conversation. So nothing I'm saying here today is set in stone, but I want to contribute to a productive conversation where we take all ideas and don't do it with fear or misinformation, but with concern and love for the park. As far as committee membership, I'll say it again publicly here. Please put it in the paper if you write about this. Reach out to my office. Anybody who wants to have a voice, we welcome it. I think the more diverse opinions we have from different users and different visions of the park, the better off we'll be with whatever we end up deciding. I did have a conversation with animal control, who was very, very helpful. This is obviously a difficult area to manage. Anytime you have a lot of dogs off leash, it's you're more likely to have conflict, but they treat this just like any other park. The beach is more of an obvious place for them to enforce because you're not allowed to have your dog off leash. Here, it's a little more complicated, but they are open to being present and available for anybody who needs, and very much part of the team here in wanting to make this a good place. The parking lot, I've heard about striping the lines just to fit the cars. That seems like a reasonable idea. I understand aesthetically there might be some concerns with that. The resident-only parking sounded like a reasonable idea. I've heard some counter opinion about that it's CPF property, we should have it open to all. And I don't know where I fall on that. If it's true that there are, dogs who have been kicked out of other parks coming and causing problems here, it seems like a reasonable conversation to have, but I really welcome any opinions, either for or against resident-only parking. Have no opinion on that yet. And then lastly, there's an updated management plan. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this is because, in government, we're not just writing things down. We're supposed to do stuff. And so if we have an adopted management plan that we're not acting on, maybe we need to update it. But we certainly need to talk about what's been adopted by previous boards and decide whether it's what we still want to do. So I hope we have this conversation again in a couple weeks, get more feedback. And then if we decide not to manage it the way the management plan says we should change that management plan to represent what we actually want to happen. So again, I welcome all comments today. In the future, reach out to me. I've already spoken with a lot of people, I think, who commented, but let's keep the conversation based on this current plan and based on our mutual love for the park and wanting the best for it.
Thank you, Ian. We're going to take public comment now.
Phone calls too.
Barbara, did you want to speak?
I was one of the very first people who got this park.
Can you just, for the record, can you just give us your name, please?
Sorry?
For the record, can you please just pronounce your name?
Barbara Feldman,
Thank you.
with Carol Buda and 4 or 5 other people decades ago.
There we go.
The point of this park was to have a place for us to be able to enjoy walking our dogs, because there were no places that we could take them that was safe, contained, and free for the dogs to be able to enjoy themselves. I look at this plan, bearing in mind that I have been a space planner, site planner, and designer for 50 years. And there are fatal flaws. First of all, we're going to talk about that small dog area. It's plunked in the middle of the park. That means that anybody who wants to use that area has to walk through the park where the other dogs are. It's counterintuitive right off the bat. Secondly, it's in the middle of the park. Does that mean that those little dogs are going to be in a gated off, squared area in the sun with people sitting on the outside? Who's going to clean that area? Those dogs are going to be in the sun. What kind of exercise do they get? Have you ever been around a dog park that's completely fenced in, a small area? It's a nightmare. The dogs are all over the place. They're pooping all over the place. People have no control. They sit around on the outside talking or having conversations. Nobody's getting exercise. There's no socialization. I walk my dogs once or twice a day. My dogs are big. My dogs play with little dogs. I have had people say to me repeatedly, my dogs don't like other dogs, but they love to play with your dogs. And I'm talking about teeny tiny little doxies, little tiny little dogs. They all play together. I really haven't seen any big dogs harming a small dog. I was hurt by a dog. It's a little dog. Dog didn't mean to hurt me. He was running actually across the field when he saw my dogs, ran under my feet. I tripped over it and fell flat on my face. Is it the dog's fault? No. Is it my dog's fault? No. But I will tell you what the real problem was. The real problem was that the center area has been chopped down, which you further want to clear, which means that doesn't encourage control of your dogs. What that does is make it easier for dogs to see dogs on the other side of the park so that they just go and run. And that's what they do. Do you know why? Because they're dogs. That's what they do. So while you have trails where you can reasonably control your dog on both sides, now you're going to open that up. Dogs will run. They will run. In fact, there are crossovers, and that is almost invariably where the dogs run across to see the dogs on the other side of the park. You can't control that. The more you clear, the more that's going to happen. Less control. You can have more visibility, but you're going to be watching your dog run across the park. If you want a small dog area, that's fine. Don't plunk it in the middle of a park where there's no shade. Those dogs respond to heat. Walking through a park, sunscreen doesn't help a dog. Putting a hat on yourself doesn't help a dog in the heat. Dogs need shade. Those dogs in the middle of that park are going to fry in the summer. No access to water, no place for those people to sit. You're going to put chairs around the outside? How is that going to work? There is an area when you first enter the park to the left where there's a bench and there are 2 tables. There's a gate right there. It leads into an adjacent area that's really not used for anything. If that area were opened up to the park so that it felt like it was part of the park, but enabled those small dog owners to access it without having to walk with and through other dogs that they are ostensibly so afraid of, you've got everything organized. If you really want to take care of older people, elderly people, and I'm 75 years old, let me make that clear. I am an elderly person. You know what they need? They need more benches midway so they can stop. They need access to maybe water. They need bathrooms. You really want to help people in that park? They need a bathroom somewhere. That is the biggest problem of anybody when they get older. That's the truth. I mean, it's an unpleasant truth, but it is the truth. The problem is not.
Barbara,
we need
3
to
minutes.
wrap up.
Excuse me?
You need to wrap up. We asked
He
folks.
spoke for 12 minutes.
He was the presenter. He was the chairman of the committee.
And I'm done.
Great, thank you. Loring?
Can I just say one thing? Barbara, I certainly welcome more comments. What you say here is, it's not limited to what you say publicly. You can write an email, you can have a phone call. I also just want to say about the small dog park, because getting attention, I think the committee left it a little open-ended because they wanted feedback, but the suggestions were either right inside the gate to the left or to the right, but they certainly agree that the small dog should not have to go through the park, and the proposal isn't to put it in the middle, but to have it somewhat segmented. Now, it might not be perfect, but I think they left that a little bit open, either in the lower, right corner, the lower left corner, so we could hear feedback.
Hi,
Welcome,
my name
Loring.
is Loring Bolger, and I have used the park extensively when my dog, who is now 15 and a half, was of an age when she could not stagger, but actually walk. And I really want to applaud everybody who has worked on this proposal. Ian, very, very brave of you. And Scott putting it forth, and Neil working so hard to make this a proposal that is really well thought out. One thing I did want to suggest with the parking, that maybe it could be residents only in the summer when parking is a problem, say from Memorial Day to Labor Day, and then have it open for the rest of the time when it's not so well used. And I just wanted to say too, for people, I know a lot of people came here with pre-existing ideas of what this presentation was going to be. I think if they take the time to look at it again on LTV, they will find that a lot of their concerns have been addressed here, that a lot of problems have been solved with it. So that's pretty much it. And thank you. I was chair of the Springs, I still am, but I was chair of the Springs CAC. Kathy was my liaison. I don't remember how many years ago it was, and we had a similar discussion that was nothing short of a nightmare. And this is so far from that, and so welcoming to everybody's point of view, that kudos to all of you, and I look forward to having some of these ideas implemented in the near future. Thanks.
Thank you, Loring. Please.
Hi, I'm Gina Chavez. I live in East Hampton, and I am a member of the Springs Dog Park Committee. And I just want to first off thank everybody for coming out, for listening to this. It's been something that we've been working on for quite a while, and hopefully that things will move forward. A couple of things I just wanted to address. The first being also that the invasive species are actually quite a danger to our dogs. There are several dogs that have been injured by the thorns that are on the invasive species. I know mine in particular actually poked his eye, went all the way through to the lens, the cornea through to the lens, and required 6 months of I work down at in Long Island, in West Islip, and so it is definitely, dogs come home with thorns in their paws, thorns in their bodies that are small, but they continually happen. So by clearing some of this, it also really does help not only the visibility and the safety, but the safety of their actual physical being. Lastly, I just wanted to mention that in terms of the committee, I agree with everybody. It is completely open to the public. I actually have only been on it for 3 years. years. And I got on it because there's something happened to me and my dog at the park. And so I called the town to ask how I could get involved. I wanted to find out how I could make it better and how we could fix. And I brought in some friends who also went to the park. And we were the 12 to 2 o'clock gang. And everybody who knows who goes to the park, you're a part of a gang. You have a certain time to go. And we definitely came in with some ideas to try to help work with some of the fencing, to help work with some of the clearing, to try to just sort of make it better for everybody. We all do live here year round. We all do frequent it year round, and we love it. It's the most magical place. I think we all agree with that. And so I just wanted to sort of voice that, but also to say we welcome anybody to come and join us. Reach out to the town. You can reach out to us. There's a great Springs page that hopefully will stop getting ads on it and have a little bit more activity, because it is a good committee. It doesn't take a lot of your time, and hopefully we can make things better for not only our dogs and us, but for many more to come. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Gina. Is there, sir?
How do you do? My name is Mark Gobenhouse, resident of Springs for just under 40 years. I want to first thank Neil and the committee for their work. My wife and I are frequent dog park visitors, and think it's one of the real treasures of the Hamptons, and appreciate all the support that the town has given to it over the years. I want to just stress hoping that the person who issued this rather alarmist notice, which did get our attention and get me to call you in a very irritated voice, and I apologize for that. But I just think this kind of excessive distortion is really unhelpful to the kind of dialogue that I think you and the committee are trying to engender, and I really appreciate that. And I hope whoever's made this is listening to this and understand how committed you all are, and the committee here is to the life of the park. I do want to just say one thing I observed. I support most of the the plans. I'm kind of ambivalent about the permit issue, but I do note one thing that just jumps out at me, and it's 2 pictures. This relates to the invasive species, actually, but these pictures here, which are billed as the sort of typical woodland areas of the Hamptons. This is not the typical woodland area of the Hamptons. This is the post-deer, infestation of the Hamptons. I mean, basically, I think it's important that invasive species be taken out, and it certainly is important that they not be brought back. But basically, the area that I live in is completely denuded of an understory. Mm-hmm. It's just a shocking reality. And I think this is sort of off topic, but it is related to the town, because my landscape that I've lived in for 40 years is completely different than it was, and it's largely due to deer. On my road, as I go out, it says there were 491 deer collisions last year. I think that I know that you're aware of that, but I think at some point in the future, this has to be dealt with in some, serious way, if indeed a place like that is going to be restored. When these trees die, there's nothing growing there. And now we're sort of shocked by invasive species. No wonder, because the existing species that have happened in these areas have been eaten. So I just think that's another subject, and I don't want to go into it any more than that. But I think it's just a context for some of what we're talking about here. And again, I just thank the committee and the board for the seriousness with which you take all issues, and that the town, the park is one of them. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Is there anyone else here that would like to address the board? Okay, so we're going to wrap up this topic. Jody, is there anyone on the phone that wanted to speak about the Springs Park? Oh, okay, thank you.
Caller ending with 0976, you're on the air. It's caller ending with 0976, you're on the air.
Hold on, sorry, I was on mute. I apologize. This is Scott Beck. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, wonderful. And I'm unmuted, so is this the time to talk about the corner of Two Holes of Water Road and Stephen Hans Path and the traffic circle?
Go ahead.
Yes, did I jump the gun?
Yes, go ahead. Yes, you can.
All right. Well, thank you. So first is, thank you to the town council for continuing to push forward with this, and in particular to Councilman Lease for championing this, at least with me, and thanks for keeping me updated on the developments. The corner of Stephen Hans Path and Route 114 is treacherous, to say the least, and I'm sure everybody's driven through it numbers of times and wonder if there are any traffic rules to speak of. For me, I read the signs that are all over, drive like your kids live here. And I would say that I take it particularly to heart. And when I did testify or share comments last year, and as part of my some emails that I sent up even 2 years ago, I sort of took the position of I'm a parent of a kid in this town, and what does that mean to me when they say, "Dad, I'm taking the car and I'm heading into town," because unless you're heading up to the north to Sag Harbor and elsewhere, you've got to leave Two Holes of Water Road and get through the intersection. And it continues to be a nightmare. I refer to it as a death trap, and I absolutely believe that. I've been driving for my entire adult life, and I still hold my breath when I go through there. But I even worse, when my kids say I'm taking the car and going to town, I hold my breath, and I hope that the phone doesn't ring, because I know 5 minutes later they'll be through that intersection safely. And I don't think that we should have to worry about that with our kids, and we don't have to worry about it with ourselves. Every summer it seems to get worse. It never gets better. The rules about who has right-of-way are rarely, if ever, followed. I see terror in people's eyes when they're trying to determine if they're supposed to cross or when it's their turn, and I see people who are not making any effort to worry about whose turn it is to go, and they're crossing wherever they feel, whenever they feel like doing that. So I know that there was a lot of effort to establish a traffic circle, which is, I think, which I think is a wonderful and elegant solution. Slows down the traffic. Everybody gets the right of way. I would certainly not have to hold my breath when my kids go through that traffic circle, and it would just lend itself to what I think is such a significant safety issue and one of the most treacherous intersections in all of East Hampton. So I would stop there. And I liked what I heard earlier. The town council is supposed to do stuff. I wrote that down, and I know you guys do. But when it comes to doing this stuff, I couldn't even tell you how important it would be to me personally, and I'm sure so many of the people who travel through that area. So with that, I'll end my comments.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, so we're going to wrap that up now and move on to Richard Whalen, who's looking to make a presentation on the Bluff Road right-of-way. Welcome, Rick. Hi, Rick. I think we did too.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Richard Whalen, Whalen Filer, PLLC. I represent two of the landowners involved here. This issue involves 3 out of 4 lots at the very eastern end of Bluff Road. There were once 4 lots, but the Brancasio lot is now, back in 2008, 2009, the town already dealt with that issue. So I'll make my presentation, I hope, very efficient. I did submit other materials that you may have received electronically, but I think this map is sort of the simplest thing just to refer to. So very quickly, in 2002, around 2002, I was in the town attorney's office, and John Zilnicki came over to me one day, and he said, "You ever seen a survey like this?" He showed me a survey of property. It was at the end of the last lot on the north side of Bluff Road. It was owned at the time by the Specht family, and it showed a house. It showed a little triangle of land purportedly owned by the Specht, and it showed their house about 3/4 of the way into what was supposedly the Bluff Road right-of-way, plus an outbuilding that was completely within the right-of-way. I said, yeah, never seen anything like that before. So that was my only involvement in what became the Brancasio lot. But what did eventually happen is that that lot was devolved down to the Brancasios, who were relatives of the Specht. They inherited the property. They hired an up-island attorney to come out and negotiate with the town over the fact that their house was supposedly within the Bluff Road right-of-way. And I don't know exactly what the details of that, negotiation were. John Zilnicki has told me that the town did refer to Michael Rykon, who you often used at those days for condemnation work and so forth. And Michael Rykon looked at it and basically said, yeah, there's an issue here. And eventually in 2008, 2009, it led to the town board granting the Brancasios. You can see on the map, their original property line that I saw in the original survey is that dashed red line. And everything between that and the solid red line to the south was deeded to the Brancasios in 2008 or 2009 by the town board. So I think what their argument was is the argument that I've later figured out on my own. We believe that the road right-of-way at the eastern end of Bluff Road is not where it's supposed to be. There's nothing you can do with that on the south side because there are lots and houses there, and you're not going to encroach into those people's property. But there's strong evidence that the road right-of-way is not where it should be. The first bit of evidence, and you can see it on here, is we're showing both the northern side of the road line, that's what's labeled in red, current monumented road line, and then there's a black line along the south side of the actual pavement itself. When you get to the east end of Bluff Road, the right-of-way throughout Bluff Road is 99 feet wide, but at the very eastern end, before you hit the Montauk Highway, the actual pavement is it's virtually touching the south side of a 99-foot right-of-way. So that's the first sign that there's something odd. Not always, but usually your road pavement is approximately within the center of the road right-of-way. The second thing is that people don't typically build houses on property that they don't own, especially in town road rights-of-way. So the Brancasio or Specht house was supposedly in the town road right-of-way. Today, there are 4 houses just to the west on the 3 lots that concern us. The Hamilton lot, the Santa Cola McGarva lot, and the Curls lot. Santa Cola and McGarva have 2 houses on their property, and the southern house is halfway into the supposed road right-of-way. That's also kind of an indication there's something wrong here. The third, and I think maybe the strongest piece of evidence, is that in 1926, there was a subdivision just to the west on the north side of Bluff Road. The surveyor was a guy named Wallace Halsey. He was a very active surveyor in the first half of the 20th century around East Hampton. And if you follow the line that he shows as the northern boundary, the northern limit line to Bluff Road, and extrapolate it east, it's what's shown on this map as the corrected road line. That's the extrapolated road line from the 1926 subdivision map, just off the map to our west here. That's probably where the northern side of the road line was supposed to be. Some point in the mid-20th century, it appears, somebody put in maybe other road monuments, and that has thrown all the surveyors off since then. And that's why the Specht survey in the early 2000s was showing that they didn't own, supposedly, most of their property. And then the last and fourth bit of evidence is that Mary Curls lot, which is also shown here. Mary Curls property, she bought that. Now, Mary Curls lives in a house there. She bought it in 1951. She now is a life estate. It's actually the property is now owned by her daughter and her son, Dennis Curls, who some of you may know. But she's still in the house 70 some odd years after she bought it. And when she bought it, her deed actually has not what you'd call meets and bounds. They didn't use compass courses, but it does give the distances from the Montauk Highway, Route 27 to Bluff Road. And she had a much deeper lot, according to her deed, has a much deeper lot, according to her deed, than the Suffolk County tax map will tell you today. So her line, her deed would basically extend down to what we call the corrected road line. So what we're asking for, I represent two of the three people involved. The others, Santa Cola and McGarver, are also on board. These properties were part of the original Little Italy. I know a lot more about this because in the last couple of years I've talked to a guy named Robert Cody, who lives on Bunker Hill Road and is also descended from the original inhabitants of Little Italy. The first home in the area was probably the northern house on the Santa Cola McGarver property. That was Della Pola. It was built by a Della Pola in 1902. And we believe that the Mary Curls house just to its west was built shortly afterwards, also by one of the Della Pola family members. And actually, Mary, by birth, is a Della Pola. So these homes, this little area was built in the very early 1900s. Everyone apparently believed, and must have had evidence to believe that the road right-of-way was further to the south than what it is. So what are we asking for? You can see what the Brancasios got in 2008, 2009. They essentially quadrupled their lot size. Not that was necessarily wrong for the town board to do that, because again, the road was apparently in the wrong place. We're not asking for anything near that. We have talked, and I've talked, obviously, I've submitted a letter in support of what our request is from Highway Superintendent Steve Lynch. The town, again, is a 99-foot wide right-of-way, except that when it gets to the Brancasio property, it narrows to as little as 37 feet. What we're asking for is that the town grant us 33 feet south from where our existing lots are. That leaves the town with a 66-foot wide right-of-way. Again, once you hit Brancasio, it gets considerably narrower. It has no effect on the town's ability to use the right-of-way. The area in question on the Curls property is yard south of her garage. On the Santa Cola property, 1/2 of their second house is currently in your right-of-way. This would put it on their property. And when you get to Elizabeth Hamilton's property, her entire yard south of her house and part of her septic system is nominally in a town road right-of-way. So we're asking that the town grant to each of the three property owners, as you can see, the area in dark blue, 33 foot of land. What we would do in consequence for that is, because we might actually have a claim to own more of the road, we would give the town a release so that there would be no further question afterwards. The three property owners in question could not later come back and say, hey, we think we own.
What's your claim to owning more of the road?
Sorry, I'm saying?
What's your claim to owning more of the road?
Well, we think the road right-of-way probably followed that dashed blue line. That's what Wallace Halsey showed in 1926. That would seem to make sense. And that's why the Brancasio house or Specht house and also the Santa Clara McGarver Southern house are outside what was supposedly the road right-of-way. So we would relinquish any further claim if we got the area that's shown in dark blue.
And that's for the three properties or for the four?
For all three, yes, for those three properties. Curls, Santa Cola and McGarver, their brother and sister, I believe, and Hamilton.
So, folks have questions for
I got a
Rick?
couple of questions. How does this affect future properties, GFA?
GFA?
Would you relinquish the lot area that would be added here to potential redevelopment of the property for GFA?
It would increase the size of the lots, obviously. I know there was controversy when the Brancasio deed was granted. There was controversy because after they acquired that property, they built the very large house that you see today. We're asking for a significantly smaller area for each of these three lots. So it's not, I'm not going to come and say we're offering to limit what we do in the future in terms of a house. These are all still very small lots. So there's not a lot of room.
One of them is a pre-existing non-conforming.
One of them is, they're all pre-existing non-conforming. One of them actually has two houses on it.
Very good point. I mean, pre-existing non-conforming to the density.
Yes, right.
Which stays. But
Yeah,
you're
I
actually
mean, there's
making
not-
it less non-conforming since it would actually be on property now potentially that the property owner would own.
Yeah, I haven't figured out how much floor area there's on the Santa Cola McGarva, but at least one of those houses I think is a two-story house, and they have two of them, so they probably are either at or close to being maxed out in GFA right now.
And just the last thing, just making the general public know, this is more of a regional issue. This small little region we want to talk about. One of the property owners, Curls, is actually a part-time employee in the Parks Department, but I don't think it would affect.
Dennis is?
Yes. I don't think it would affect, it doesn't affect the request here. This is more specifically to write things, and that's the discussion point. I just want to make sure the public knows that.
Yeah.
So do folks have questions?
No, I'm good.
Do you wish to discuss it now, or we could bring it back to another work session?
Whatever you recommend.
I mean, I think, since these folks came to us last year, and I think it was back in November, right? You made a presentation.
Yes, we made a presentation in November, but obviously,
We have a new
Tom and
board,
Ian were not
so
on the board at that
it's been
time.
brought back. I mean,
Well, I guess I would just say that, the letter from Steve Lynch means a tremendous amount. Your story, common sense wise, it makes sense that there's a problem here, where the road is drawn doesn't make sense based on the development. I would just want to make sure it's an odd thing to give land away. But if it's the fair and right thing to do, I'm in favor of it. I just want to make sure legally that, I'm sorry, go ahead. No, just that you sign off on it.
Do you know how the Brancasio deed was it just a correction deed? It
was a quick claim deed. Quick claim deed. There was no consideration paid for it.
I'd also want to check with the law as to would this possibly require reassessment of the properties as well? Because
some of the land will now become taxable. I mean, Mary Curl's yard, she's not paying taxes on it. Her yard is theoretically your land.
And so is this 2 front yards?
Yes, all of these, Hamilton comes in from Bluff Road, Santa Cola and McGarver come in on both sides, Mary Curls comes in from the Montauk Highway. That's where their current
So as far as zoning, is it 2 front yards? So
Yeah,
as
2
far
front
as
yards.
setbacks would be
Two
from
front
2 front
yards.
yards, which is greater than a rear yard setback. So it makes sure that even if there's an adjusted property line, that adjusted property line would have the greatest setback off that road, because any potential redevelopment of these properties might have a change of that character of that neighborhood, because that neighborhood is changing down there a little bit then too.
No, it has.
so then this would be subject to a public hearing if the town board were to move forward with this?
I think it was subject to,
It's a referendum.
Rob, I think it was subject to a permissive referendum notice.
I would imagine.
But a
That's what the
public
town
hearing
did.
as well as permissive referendum?
During two and then.
I don't know what they did. I don't know if they did a public hearing in 2008, 2009.
I would want one whether it's required or not,
Yeah.
because this is an odd situation.
Sure.
Certainly, generally, the concept and the issue that has already been corrected for one lot without consequences that have impacted anything else, I'm supportive of of adjusting the other properties the same way as we did on the other one.
I'm just a little bit more concerned about the precedent setting to the west, and particularly when it comes to GFA. These are small lots, substandard lots, but the ones to the west, some of them are in the middle of redevelopment right now. Added lot area would increase their potential for GFA or siting on the property. So those are some of my concerns in the area. But these ones specifically, there might be more uniqueness because of the substandard lot size, lot width on them, and also specifically that you have one that has a living structure that is not on their property. So that's why I'm more inclined to listen to these ones than others on there, because the overall effects on the massing, the zoning is much more or less than of the larger lots to the west. That's my comment.
And let me address that too, David. So this, I think, is a unique situation affecting these lots, really originally 4 lots, now 3 lots. As you move west, and you can see this on the map, the difference between the road line that was shown in the 1926 subdivision map, they begin to converge.
Correct.
So as you go further west, there are people, there's a condominium development at the far end of west end of Bluff Road that is actually occupying a lot of the road right away with its parking lot. But our claim isn't based on adverse possession. You can't have adverse possession against the Crown anyway, and they have no unique circumstances. This is
we got crowns now.
We're gonna get a crown.
So you're the Crown. So this happens only at the eastern end of the road, that the right-of-way and the pavement are not matching up. And, that's why people had houses on what is supposedly, town road right-of-way.
I would support bringing this to the public hearing for a greater discussion and hear from the public.
So we'll
Sure.
draft
Okay.
that. Probably we'll hear it in July.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. Good day.
Appreciate it, Rick. Okay, and last we have our town attorney, Rob Connolly, is just going to talk to us about an amendment to Chapter 167, litter and dump control.
Thank you. This was brought to our attention by Kevin Cooper, the Director of Code Enforcement. There appears to have been a
Do you have the
typo.
mic? Are you talking into the mic?
I am, yeah.
Okay.
There appears to be a typo in the third line of the code section where it says, "and its contents are covered or secured." We believe that is supposed to actually read, "and its contents are covered and secured," so that there's no either or. So that the proposal is really just, it's very minor, is to strike "or" and replace that with "and" to give code enforcement more opportunity to enforce this section of the code.
Is everybody good with that?
Yeah, I just want to just note that the Litter Action Committee has been asking for this for quite some time. The folks that have adopted the roads leading to the Springs Recycling Center, frequently what they're picking up is stuff that is flown out of the back of trucks as stuff was going to the dump. So it's a real issue. And I think just increasing that language a little bit would be helpful to make sure that whatever you're taking in the back of your truck or large trucks, commercial trucks, is secured.
So Rob, if you could put this on for Thursday so that we could hear it June 20th, I'm sorry, that would be great. Okay, so that we've gotten through our work session topics and now we're up to liaison reports. Tom, you want to lead us off?
Absolutely. Against Citizens Advisory Committee will be meeting on June 9th at 6:30 p.m. Kevin Cooper from Ordnance will be the guest speaker. For IT, they continue to work on OpenGov. The goal here is for a soft launch by the end of the year. The departments we're focusing on here are Building Department, Planning Department, Fire Marshal, and Code Enforcement.
Sorry, when is the launch?
The soft launch is by the end of the year. I mean, I don't want to give the exact date there, but at the end of the year, certainly. One of the reasons for that timeline is just wanting to get this done right. It's critical that we do this the right way. Other thing from IT, we've continued to see a huge number of cybersecurity events happening in June. We've had 696 month to date. Compare that to 2,346 in May and 3,600 almost in April. So just continue to ensure all departments stay up to date with all cyber training. Human Services, we did a tour of the existing senior center with Steve O'Brien and James Pincott to review areas that need repair, and I will be bringing those proposals to the boards in the coming months. Additionally, the Human Services Department's been contacted by Vicky Farmark, a special ed teacher at Spring School, to look to do some partnering with intergenerational activities. On June 11th, 8:40 a.m. at Maidstone Beach, there's going to be a beach cleanup activity with students from the Spring School, and so far we have 5 seniors signed up for that as well, but are looking for more. We want to continue that partnership with students visiting the center once a month to have board games with seniors and other activities.
Okay, what's that date?
That cleanup will be on June 11th, 8:40 a.m. at Maidstone Beach, and I will try to be there too. Fire Marshal, we will be doing a presentation on June 11th on beach fires and residential fire pits safety. We will also be working on a presentation for the next few months on electric bikes and safety with regards to those. Sanitation, just meeting with some of the sanitation people this morning. There continue to be a number of people turning up to the recycling centers without permits. I want to remind people that the clerk's office is open from 9 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. weekdays, excluding holidays, and permits are also able to purchase at the recycling center on Springs Fireplace Road. That is open Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. This is a service that we provide to the public. In order for it to function effectively, it is critical that people do purchase those permits, and code enforcement will be enforcing that. Brooks Park Restoration, we had a meeting last night where I was presented with a proposed business plan. I will be meeting with Scott Wilson and Rob Connolly, our town attorney, to review that along with the licensing proposal they provided. Special events and film, just wanted to call out that this weekend, Saturday morning, we have the Mighty Montauk Triathlon happening. There is also events happening at Duck Creek, and on Sunday 8th, there is the 8th annual Montauk Mile taking place. Additionally, this Saturday, I'm going to let Ms. Rogers speak to that a bit more, but there is the Change Hampton event happening. I assume you're going to bring that one up. Disability Advisory Board, just want to note that we completed the installation of the ADA accessibility ramp to the basketball court at Essex Street, adjacent to the skate park. I want to thank the team for getting that done so promptly. Anti-Bias Task Force, for those of you who don't know, we had a very successful Pride Parade in the village this weekend. It was one of the highlights of my time in office to date, and kudos to those who organized it. The Arts Council Committee, I just want to note that this Saturday, June 8th and Sunday, June 9th, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., the Artist Alliance Studio Tour will be taking place. It's a wonderful thing to go visit those studios and see the artists' workspaces. Additionally, for any additional artists wishing to sign up, you can still do so. There's still time. For those interested in learning more about that event, you can visit the website aaeh.org. And then finally, Business Committee, we have our next meeting at June 9th, where Joe Palermo from the Building Department will be the guest speaker.
Great. Thank you.
I want to let the board know that the streetscape aspects that we've been working on, I want to thank the board for that support in North Main Street and also Montauk by bricking and cobblestoning some of the areas. We're pretty much complete. We do have some small work that we have to do around some of the trees as far as the planter boxes and putting in some mulching in it. But I think that that amount of the streetscape looks really good on North Main Street.
We had our East Hampton CAC last night, and everybody was over the moon with it.
Great.
It really looks terrific.
And in Montauk, we've done some other areas. We'll continue. That sounds great. We'll continue to work on more of the streetscape as the years go on. But again, it's a new initiative that we have under the supervisor, Burke Gonzalez here, and I would look forward to doing that more often. In aquaculture, the community oyster gardening programs are going full steam right now. A large group of individuals there. Please contact John Barley Dunn if you want to join into that this year or in the future. Try to get some more information, but aquaculture is going well. I'm wondering if maybe we can get aquaculture on for a presentation, for a seasonal presentation, maybe sometime in June or July to show where they are in the season. We also do have some DEC changes to seasonal openings upcoming in the town, and we're going to be reviewing those. Maybe we can discuss those at that upcoming meeting also. In Parks and Recreation, this was last weekend was the first weekend. Was it second weekend of lifeguard at beaches? Both of them went smoothly. Lifeguards are on there. We had pretty good surf conditions both weekends. The back of the beach lanes are installed in Amagansett and also in downtown Montauk. And 88 beach matting is being installed in these locations also then too, taking out some of the area to make sure that we have the right specs on there. Again, if anyone is interested in working for the town of East Hampton as a recreational park aide or as a lifeguard, please contact John Rooney in our Parks Department at 631-324-4141. Montauk Playhouse is continuing on. I stopped out there yesterday to walk through the site. There's continued concrete form work for the pools, and the pillars are being installed. Steel work is going in to open up the areas for the pool. They did encounter a couple beams that have some increased rust on them that we'll have to be looking for a change order for them. That'll be sorted out shortly. Nothing too bad there. And they're going to start underground plumbing in this next coming week for the IA system and also some underground plumbing, but for internally. But overall, it is working out very well, and they're moving along at a steady pace. As far as FEME, The fire on the Mauritius Inlet project, the sand fencing has been installed, beach matting has been installed. Unfortunately, some individuals are using the new sand fencing for beach fires on there, so maybe we can discuss that. I don't know if we'll try to cure this all, but that's happening. There's 2 locations of non-compliance to some of the pedestrian crossovers. Some individual property owners have added their own. We have authorized action against one of those individuals. And we also had a meeting last week 2 weeks ago with the Army Corps of Engineers and the DC about the current state of the crossovers, the wooden ones that have been dilapidated. The DEC, the Army Corps, and the town all support removal of them and switching to a straight at-grade overpass and public access points, with the 88 points being the sand matting that's down at South Edison. That will be taken back to the Army Corps of Engineers for discussion, and they'll get back to us with that shortly if they agree to that and what they're going to do with the current ones that are in place. Want to let everyone know that East Hampton Little League is vastly in the middle of their season, towards the end of their season, and actually in playoffs start tonight. We actually have a game. Both of my daughters have a games tonight, 2 of them. So playoffs start. It's been a fun season. I also want to thank Dave Rakowski and Jeff Tupper for leading a trip to the Mets game for East Hampton Little League. It was part of their the New York Mets Little League. All the Little Leaguers were in the stadium. And there's about 650 East Hampton Little Leaguers and their parents at Shea Stadium. Sorry, City Field. It's always Shea Stadium to me, maybe. Field. It was a great time to walk around the whole stadium and always see someone else from Bonnet in there. It was really fun, actually. So I want to thank those 2 gentlemen and all the parents and organizers of East Hampton Little League for putting that together. They assisted in making memories for the kids, because I do remember when I went in Little League to the old Shea Stadium. I thought it was climbing like the Eiffel Tower because it was so tall at the time. But it was a really nice time, and the season's going well. Please stop down to one of your local Little League games and cheer on the kids. And that's all I have from Madam Supervisor.
Thank you, David. Kate?
Yes, hi, thank you. I know that I'll start with the Wainscott CAC. Their meeting was on Saturday morning before the Pride Parade. It was a hard stop at 11, so everyone in the committee could attend the parade. The usual items were discussed. They are concerned, obviously, and want to know if there's any movement for the airport, the gun club, the Wainscott Commercial Center activity. That these are their areas of concern. However, I'd like to talk mostly about in this presentation the 3 letters that the Wainscott CAC recommendations came to the town board via email. They were sent to us by Carolyn Logan. The first one is about a list, and this is something that a subcommittee has been working on. David, you've been working on this, and we asked the Wainscott CAC to come up with a list in priority of stop signs that they would like to see put up at intersections throughout Wainscott for traffic calming. They sent us their list of 8 recommendations in priority order, and I just also want to give context to those requests. Anthony Liberatore, who is on the subcommittee for traffic and PD, he gave us a report that the 2 traffic counting signs, calming signs that we put up that count the traffic on Wainscott Stone Road, which is one of the areas of the recommendations, during the period over the Memorial Day weekend and just before that, they counted 23,000 cars using that road. That's one-way traffic only is counted. And that the most activity they see is between the hours of 6 a.m. and 7 p.m. So you could just figure out you would double that for the people going back on that day. And then on Wainscott Main Street, and unbelievable to me, 59,000 vehicles were tracked. So the I just want board members to keep in mind when they see those recommendations, this is the kind of traffic that we're talking about on these very back roads through our hamlet. I was discussing how, the navigation that's in cars really should be including these types of roads. It goes the fastest route, and that's taking people through very small roads, through communities. And so there is an issue with speeding. When you're in the meeting at the chapel of this month, it was in person, you witness what's going on as people clearly are doing above the speed limit on those roads. So traffic calming is very important for Wayne-Scott, considering that is a major back road, highway to get into from west to east. Also, the other recommendation they were hoping the town board would support would be to lowering the speed limit on 27 between Sayers Path and Westgate, I believe it was, to the west. They would like to see that lowered from 40 miles an hour to 30 miles an hour. It's the only business district where the speed limit is that high, goes up to 40, and they would like to have some support from the town board to approaching Assemblyman Fred Thiel on proposing a change there.
This is his last week, the last week in session.
In session, yeah. So, I mean, they would like us to at least send a letter to support to the Assemblyman. And then we had asked, as you know, these Hamlet of Wayne-Scott is receiving a dedicated fund from South Fork Wind Farm of over 2 years, $5.5 million. They've already received the initial payment of $2.75 million, the town has. And we asked the committee for recommendations and lists of what folks in Wayne-Scott would like to see done with the South Fork wind money. The third letter of recommendation that came from Carolyn Logan to the board was a request to see the Wayne-Scott implementation plan before they put forth any recommendations. What they're looking to do is to look for areas to improve that would have the most impact on the most residents of Wayne-Scott, and certainly that commercial corridor impacts all of the residents of Wayne-Scott, and quite frankly, everyone that drives through there for the town. So we tentatively have the Wayne-Scott implementation plan on for a near future work session. So they would like to reserve making recommendations until after that presentation on the implementation plan. The Zoning Code Amendment Group met this week, and we went over the comments and questions from the town board and comments from the community on the proposed zoning code changes. We're looking to do an early July presentation to come back with some tweaks and some additional information that the town board had asked for. For example, the science of basements sitting in groundwater and what that leads to. So we're gathering that, and we're preparing that presentation as a group. I also want to make note that it's very difficult to, folks have mentioned about having folks in the industry on this committee, and in doing outreach, it's very difficult for people who are working in that industry to devote a Monday morning from 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. It's a considerable amount of time for them, particularly at this time of the year when they are all so busy in their businesses, and also for us, having evening meetings, having all the department heads that we have on the committee and staff and lawyers present, that's a difficulty for after work hours. So we are working with folks in the industry who are having meetings in the evening to outreach to other folks in the industry, and we'll be gathering all those comments as well. So I just wanted folks to know that that's happening. Additionally, the Wayne-Scott Waterfront Advisory Committee met. In the first meeting, a work session that we had in Montauk, we had discussed a request on a zone change modification. According to our code, as I mentioned at the time and confirmed with Rob, that request should go to the Waterfront Advisory Committee, which is a codified committee that manages the LWRP in our town. And I want folks to know that we had a meeting, and at the meeting, we invited the agents for the applicant and the applicants themselves to come to the meeting and talk the committee through the presentation and answer questions for the committee. That was accomplished. And what the recommendation from the committee, they feel they would like to see the next public presentation that will happen from the applicant, and also comments from the planning department before they send in a recommendation, so they have the full picture. But it was a very good meeting with the applicants and the agents for the applicants who presented to them. The same presentation in public and answered any questions that the members had. And as Tom mentioned, this weekend on Saturday, June 8th, there will be a presentation, there will be an event by Change Hampton right here at Town Hall for the pollinator garden, introducing the pollinator garden for the season of 2024. It's looking great. When you come into Town Hall, you'll see this beautiful garden that is pollinator friendly and also does not use any pesticides, fertilizers, etc. And very minimal landscape watering, as an example of alternatives to what we know as landscaping since the 1960s with the Kentucky blue-green lawn and all the ornamentals that require tremendous amount of resources, fertilizing, etc. And this, I mean, when I walk outside and we walk through this garden, you can see the pollinators, the bees having a great time, spreading the love across the town. So this Saturday, starting at 10 a.m., then we'll have a Naming the Name event. There'll be poets and artists. The East Hampton High School kids have already presented their artwork and will be here also as part of the event, and everyone in the town is invited to come down on Saturday, beginning at 10, to enjoy the pollinator garden and learn more about how effective it is and what plants are in it, and also just enjoy the day here in the garden. And that is all I have.
Great, thank you. Ian?
Yes, I recently met with the Springs Citizens Advisory Committee, and one of the big topics was pickleball. The room was full of pickleball enthusiasts, which I found very interesting because we'd heard recently on this board opponents to pickleball in private areas. I followed up that conversation with Councilman Lease and John Rooney, who I know have been working on pickleball and other recreational opportunities. There are 2 new courts in Montauk that are just being finished up with striping. 2 other courts have been converted and striped for pickleball. The Spring School has 3 courts, I believe, that have pickleball striping now. And there's a larger Terry King field project where the engineering will be done this year and into the future. So there is work being done. And I would just say, as I told Councilman Lease, I think that we should really consider this, because some people consider it a nuisance. A lot of people consider it a great recreational opportunity. And so I think as a town, identifying places where it can be an opportunity without causing a nuisance to neighbors would be a great thing. So the Stephen Hans Path facility makes, there's other people who've done more work on this than me, but I just want to voice to the board and the public that, those opinions were heard, and I think it's something we should look into further. The other big topic of conversation was the potential traffic circle at Springs Fireplace and 3 Mile Harbor. Very happy to say, under Supervisor Bert Gonzalez's leadership, the town board acted very, very quickly on that to try to get it in time while the state is still in session. And I also want to say, I think this is kudos to the rest of this board who made a position for Rebecca Hansen. Her work on this as the town administrator and being able to really dedicate a couple of days to just working hardcore on this was super, super helpful. So we'll see how that comes out. There would be a public referendum on that if it is to move forward, but just want to say that our board heard from the community, and we're doing everything we can to make sure that from a town standpoint, there aren't barriers to that project, which is a county project, but we're removing the town barriers as quickly as we can.
So can I just jump in here a second? Because I have an update. So we held a special meeting last week in order to do the home rule request for the bills in the Senate and the Assembly for the parkland alienation. So the county has to do the same. They have a meeting today, so it's on their agenda today, and it passes. Apparently, there are other home rule on the agenda at the county level. They are driving them to Albany tomorrow because this is technically the last week of session, so it needs to go through the local governments committee, which is Fred Thiel chairs. So we have our fingers crossed that this is all going to get done before they wrap up in Albany.
And if it doesn't get done for whatever reason, it won't be for lack of effort. And again, I think that we had comments recently about the position of the town administrator, and this is just a very clear-cut example of the work she's doing for the town and how that position, I think, can benefit us all. So hoping for the best, but we've done what we can. Lastly, the community housing funds. There was recently a press release, and it's available on our website for a request for applications for all affordable housing type of developments. It can be anything that people are thinking of. I mentioned this last time too, but it's important. So I hope everybody can help spread the word. And there's also a first-time home buyer assistance program that was recently released. And I hope that we will all think of anybody who can use that, encourage everybody to participate. Along those same lines, although I'm not the liaison necessarily to this project, but the 3 Mile Harbor, the what are they calling that? 3 Mile Harbor Affordable Housing?
Yeah, it's
everybody knows what we're talking about. Though
the Gardner's Point, the green at Gardner's Point.
The green at Gardner's Point. But though the applications are open there, and anybody who has, friends, neighbors, family who are feeling the very real difficulty of affording to live here, who feel like they can't stay, I encourage everybody to apply. Miss Katie Casey gave a presentation about this even if you think you're not eligible, please apply. Ask, the East Hampton Housing Authority and anybody you can for help. We really, we're trying to make a difference here, and we want people to be able to stay and thrive here. Lastly, along those lines, I hope to continue. It's still an honor to work with the Housing Department and Eric Shantz and his team. Hope to continue to talk about senior housing with respect to density and expand that to affordable housing generally, and even look at workforce housing, which was sort of alluded to today in a different part of the presentation. But I'm happy with how much dedication this board with all hands on housing has, and I look forward to future conversations.
So it just reminded me, we had sent over the draft legislation to increase the density for senior housing. Do we know when that's scheduled to go before the planning board?
I do not, but I'll follow up with that. I'll follow up with Eric and Jeremy.
That'd be great. Okay, so I just wanted to share with the community some East Hampton Town Police Department statistics from Memorial Day weekend. So the chief looks at this from Friday, May 24th at 6 a.m. through Monday, May 27th. There were 340 calls for service, including 35 medical aided cases, 14 motor vehicle accidents, 29 residential noise complaints, and 2 commercial noise complaints. We had 17 arrests, including 5 DWIs, and numerous summonses were issued for open alcohol, public urination, and 144 traffic citations issued, including vehicles for hire blocking traffic. There were also 343 parking summonses and 43 town ordinance summonses issued as well. So we all, experienced it was a very busy weekend, a lot of traffic. And I have to say, I have the police scanner in my car, and it was nonstop the entire weekend. It's just incredible what our public safety folks do. And while that was all happening, us board members were out in Montauk, and I just wanted to acknowledge publicly, we had that flooding issue at Surfside Avenue in Montauk, and it really was quite the collaboration. And what was really driven home here is how powerful relationships are. We reached out to the Montauk Fire Department, Tom was there and, talked to the fire commissioners. The fire chief, Ken Glogg, was on site, and folks donated their time on the Saturday of Memorial Day weekend to start pumping. We realized what a big job it was. We reached out to the county. Bruce Bates, our emergency preparedness coordinator, reached out to FRES, Fire Rescue Emergencies for Suffolk County. They sent someone out Saturday afternoon. They assessed the situation and and realized that we really needed the big guns. We brought in Suffolk County's Department of Public Works, the sanitation district, because they had the largest pumps in the county. They pumped on Sunday of Memorial Day weekend and then came back on Tuesday, and we finally got to, dry pavement. And from what I understand, I've taken some trips out there, it's held up. And it was all caused, we put a press release out on this, but I just wanted folks to know it was caused because someone had, put
Trap bags.
Bags of, gravel and sand and railroad ties and whatnot in a vector ditch, and it changed the course of the water. So now that, and I should say, the county came out on Friday with 9 folks from Vector Control and cleaned out that ditch. So really the power of relationships, and I sent an email to County Executive Romaine to thank him for all of the efforts, and very grateful. Just a heads up, New York State Route 114, that intersection is getting some changes at Stephen Hand's Path. It's being reconfigured to add left turning lanes from every direction and new enhanced traffic signals with ADA compliant pedestrian accommodations. And additionally, the intersection, we've talked about this, at Route 114 and Good Friend Drive will add a turning lane in both directions. I will say that preliminary work has started. I saw surveyors there last Friday, and, not ideal, but the construction is supposed to begin this summer.
So I can add on to that. 'Cause
Okay, good.
I've been in constant contact with New York State DOT on there. The priority for that project, I think there's 6 intersections, including ones in the North Fork, is to get the Good Friend Drive one done first. That was one of the priorities of the bid. Get it in advance of the school season, upcoming school season.
Oh, that's good news.
Stephen Hand's Path will happen in 114, that intersection. Traffic will not be stopped. There might be some points in times in which there's one lane options. If I get more information as it goes, I wish I'd requested. I'll let us.
That's
let
great.
you know. But yes, that project is going to go not optimal during the middle of summer, but it will happen when the contractor moves on.
Okay, thanks, David. And then at Thursday's meeting, I'm going to be offering a resolution to accept the 2023 Community Housing Fund audit. And I'd just like to share an overview of the program and the audit results with the community. As everybody knows, in November 2022, voters overwhelmingly approved an additional 0.5% real estate transfer tax on certain transactions. That went into effect for closings that occurred starting April 1st of 2023. We received, when we received our first payment from the county in June of 2023, we get those payments just in the same manner as we get the Community Preservation Fund monthly payments. Although it's not required under the state statute, the town did commission an audit of the fund for the 2023 fiscal year. The audit was performed by Cullen and Dankowski, and we are pleased to report that there were no issues or concerns raised in the audit. Although the fund is in its infancy stages, those expenses that were charged to the fund were found appropriate. This includes general government support, which is town staff to support the operation of the fund. Total revenues that were collected in 2023 totaled about $3.2 million. Total expenses was about $47,000. So the 2023 year-end fund balance was $3.186 million. 2024, we've seen that fund grow at a more rapid pace. As of today, the fund currently has more than $4.7 million before expenses. I'm going to have, like I said, a resolution on Thursday to accept these findings. And the town's Housing Department and Community Housing Advisory Board have been working diligently on this program. And we feel that the 2024 budget provides a very strong financial framework to be able to execute the goals that we've set forward for that program and for the future. And that is all I have today to report.
I'd like to offer, sorry,
Go ahead.
apologize. I'd like to offer resolution 2020, actually, excuse me. It's a pleasure of mine to offer resolution 2024-731 is to appoint full-time laborer in the Highway Department, Zachary Walbearer, hourly rate of $23.98 at $49,888.18 annually, effective retroactive to June 3rd.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. 732 is appoint seasonal lifeguards, retroactive to May 27, 2024 through September 16th, 2024. Names, positions, pay rates listed below.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. 733 is appoint seasonal employee in the Parks Department effective June 15th, 2024. Miriam Giuseppe, custodian 1, $22 per hour.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. 734 is appoint seasonal employee in the recreational department, an hourly rate of $17.16 to be paid bi-monthly. Tiara Seymour, and it is starting June 7th, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. 735 is authorize emergency road repair to Winterberry Lane. And it was authorized as the town highway department to make the necessary emergency repairs to above roadway.
Can we call for discussion? Do you
I need a
both-
second first.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Need a
Second. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I'm gonna
call for discussion. If you just want to explain why.
Sure. Winterberry Lane is very similar to exactly what the caller had mentioned. It was another situation in which the developer never completed their role or what they were supposed to do as far as getting the road up to highway standards, and it was never accepted into the highway district. This is back in the 1980s. A lot happened then. The other one that he was discussing at that time was probably Beach Plum Court, which we had acquired the title on. So we've looked into that. That's why we're allowed to authorize emergency road repairs in the area, and it was looked at by the highway project supervisor.
Great.
Does that help?
That does, I think.
So I had a second. I seconded.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye. 736, authorize emergency road repair to Hawthorne Street, where the highway project inspector Kevin Cobb's made aware, determined that repair is needed. Town board authorizes the highway department to make necessary road repairs.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
737 is to set bid EH 24-015, Stephen Hans Path Recreational Facility Mobile Food concession rebid, the Hampton Soft Ice Cream DBA Finger Licking Food Truck. First season, 2024, $1,160. Second season, 2025, $1,260.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I have Resolution 738, and this is to appoint temporary office assistant for the town board for Miriam Ramos Martinez. And this is resolved that Miriam is appointed to temporary office assistant for the town board at the hourly rate of $23 to be paid from a proper budget account. This is effective June 10th, 2024 through September 8th, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to withdraw Resolution 739.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 740 is to accept a road widening easement in UR Parcel 9 in East Hampton-4. And this is resolved that and this is where pursuant to local law, the town board of the town of East Hampton adopted urban renewal plans covering lot layout improvements for old filed maps. And whereas the plan calls for submission of easements by certain property owners to the town for the purposes of permitting widening and other improvements to specific roads in the subdivision, which are to be used to provide access to the urban renewal parcels. Therefore, resolved that the town board approves and it grants the easement and directs the town clerk to return the easement to the grantors for recording. The grantor is Bistrian Cement Corp. At P.O. Box 5048, East Hampton, New York. The parcel is UR Parcel 9, EH4, map 426, block 35, lots 190 through 196, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-123-5-12.2 and 13, and this is at Harborview Avenue.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
741 is the approval of various special events for June 2024. One is, and it is resolved that the following special event permits are approved with the conditions agreed to by the reviewing committee. One is for the Old Montauk Athletic Club, the 8th Annual Montauk Mile Race, starting at Montauk Firehouse to Lions Field, Montauk Brewery, on Sunday, June 9th, 2024, from 10:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. The setup is 8:30 a.m., the takedown is 1 p.m. The next one is Montauk Yacht Club for the Levy Wedding at 32 Star Island Road, Montauk, Saturday, 6/22/2024. The wedding is from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. Setup is on 6/20 at 12 p.m. Takedown is at 6/23 at 12 p.m. The next one is for the Wounded Warrior Project, and this is for Soldier Ride in the Hamptons. The route starts at the Amagansett Fire Station at 439 Main Street, Amagansett, and goes through various roads to Sag Harbor Marine Park, then returning to the Amagansett Fire Station. This will take place on Saturday, July 20th, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Next is Wings Over Haiti, the Hamptons Artists for Haiti East Hampton Airport event at 173 Daniels Hole Road, East Hampton, on Saturday, July 20th, from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. The setup is on the 19th at 4 p.m. The takedown is begins at the 21st at 10 a.m. Next is Michael Novogratz for the Novogratz Spolar Wedding Welcome Dinner. This is at a residence in Amagansett. Will happen on Thursday, June 27th, from 5 p.m. to 8:45 p.m. The setup is 7 a.m. Takedown is on July 2nd at 5 p.m. Next is also for the same wedding, and it's the Novogratz Spolar Soiree Prasini, the barbecued and pool party. This takes place at a residence in Amagansett, Friday, June 28th, from 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. And lastly is the Novogratz Spolar Wedding Reception in Amagansett, at a residence in Amagansett. Takes place on June 29th, from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. And finally, Novogratz Spolar Brunch at a residence in Amagansett on Sunday, June 30th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Setup is on the 29th at 7 a.m. and the takedown is July 2nd at 5 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. 724 is the approval of the Loving Adventures LLC Seasonal Special Event Permit for 2024. This is whereas commercial surf camps require a seasonal special event permit under the town code, whereas the Special Event Committee reviewed the application submitted by Loving Adventures LLC and has approved granting the permit under the specified conditions listed below, and it's resolved that the town board hereby approves Loving Adventures LLC special event for their surf camp, also as per the conditions below.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. 743 is to retain sea level mapping, and this is whereas the town of East Hampton has determined that a survey of the beach at Ditch Plains is needed for restoration of the beach profile, whereas the surveyor will determine the quantity of sand needed to restore the beach profile for the 2024 summer season. Be it resolved that the firm of Robert H. Fox, DBA Sea Level Mapping, is hereby retained to perform the required survey as referenced above for a cost not to exceed $2,000 per the proposal dated 5/30, and this is retroactive to 5/31/2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
744 is a notice to bidders, EH 24-022, and this is for Ditch Plains Beach Nourishment 2024. The bids are available June 6, 2024, and due back on June 12, 2024 at 9 a.m. And this is the town wishes to perform public works in excess of $30,000, and whereas work projects that exceed $35,000 be formally bid. Therefore, the Ditch Plains Beach Nourishment bid is available. Specifications are available at the purchasing department and may be picked up or obtained by emailing J. Carosa at ehamptonny.gov between the hours of 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, except holidays beginning June 6, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so I think that's it for resolutions. So do I have a motion to go into exec session?
Yes, I make motion to go into exec session for CPF, personnel, litigation, Cablevision franchise agreement, real estate, and public safety.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, LTV.